Well, welcome everybody. Tom, how are you, sir? We're going to shift our agenda a little bit and go right to public participation so that we can thank the guests who are here, especially the real students that we serve. You know, some of the 1.5 million students in the state who are here today. The board, we always love seeing some folks that are actually experiencing the policies we make. So why don't we cut?
As long as they're not throwing things.
Right, as long as they're not throwing things.
It could be risky.
Good.
Are we going to let them talk?
We're going to let him talk. This is a friendly crew, we think.
He did it, Richard. He's the one. Anything you don't like, it was his idea.
Yeah.
She's so cute.
So why don't we, Marilyn Mertz, if you would go right to
Okay,
that.
we're going into public participation right now, and before we start, I want to let everyone know that you each get 5 minutes to speak, and the board does not engage in a conversation, but they're happy to hear whatever you've come here to present or tell them. And I will tell you who is going to be at the table. When I call your name, you can come to the end of the table here. If you've got handouts, just pass them to the closest person at the table, and they'll help you hand them out. And our first group are fifth graders from Stockbridge Heritage Exploratory Academy. And on deck is Thomas Harwood. And I need to get you some more chairs, I think. Grab 2 more chairs.
First of all, we're honored to be here. This is the first time that we've been up here and the first time I've been up here, but I'm going to let them do most of the talking. I'm going to sort of guide them through a little presentation they have for you. We're a
Want a chair?
I'm not fine. I'm all set.
Okay.
We're an experiment is what we are. We're a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade classroom in Stockbridge, Michigan. And what we are trying to do is trying to figure out how to get out of the flat line of some of our testing scores. And what we decided to do was to integrate more projects. So we're a project-based learning school, and we're going to talk about some of the projects they've had. And we've seen a significant increase in the scores that we've had over the last 2 years. And it's been, as a teacher, it's been fantastic to see that. And I think it's the engagement. It's the engagement that I think is what's causing the higher scores. So, Dylan, if you would talk to us a little bit about the hydraulics that we use in our projects.
We use hydraulics. We used it in an ROV when we took a water sample on our field trip that we just went to last week.
And where was that
in
field trip?
Lindsay's.
And where was that located?
Grand Traverse.
Grand Traverse Bay. So we took a ride on a schooner and took some water samples. What is an ROV?
An ROV is a remotely operated vehicle that you can take to the water, and you put the ROV in the water, and you have a remote control, and you control it around the water.
And so you built those ROVs all by yourself. What else did you do with the ROVs with salmon?
We released salmon a few weeks ago in the Grand River. Well, we had, I think, 200 salmon. Some of them died last year and we had to get a new batch, but the DNR let us get the new batch because it wasn't our fault. My mom had a disease and passed it on to her.
So did they just give it to them, or did we have to give them
We had
something?
to give them
We had to
data.
give them all.
So they collect data every day on all of our salmon to figure out what kind of data do you guys collect?
The water test, pH, KH, ammonia, GH, nitrites.
And one of the things we had were ammonia problems, and when we had the ammonia problems, we were trying to figure out a way to get rid of the ammonia problems. And one of those ways was through an aquaponic system, and the aquaponic system ended up working. And we're going to try to give the DNR that data to see if they'll let us to start using the aquaponics with the salmon. So that's one of the other ones. Dylan, or Melina, let's go with you. Can you tell them a little bit about the piano upcycling and how we incorporate writing curriculum into the piano upcycling?
Well, we had a piano that we took apart during school, and whenever we were finished, we decided that we wanted to make our own instrument out of it. And so we wrote an informational piece about how it was made and what the name of it was. So that's what
we used writing.
And then Devin, so we have to make sure that we're covering all the curriculum, and one of, so that, a lot of teachers and parents will ask, how are you doing your math? How are you doing your science? We integrate it all, but Devin, can you tell them a little bit about the math assignment that we had with our hovercrafts?
With the hovercrafts, we did radius, diameter, and circumference. The radius, we would times that by 2 to get the diameter, and then we times the diameter by pi to get the circumference, which pi is 3.14.
And so then when we would take we'd conduct our experiments, one of our experiments was to try to figure out with a spring scale for science, how a spring scale can help with some of the friction, help us determine friction of our hovercraft. And who's speaking about that? Is that still you, Devin?
Yeah. Well, we pulled a student down the hall with just the spring scale, and then we pulled a student on a hovercraft down the hall, and the hovercraft had less friction.
A lot less friction. All right, so let's go to the roller coasters, Dylan. So we build roller coasters in our classroom that are themed. So when in our writing curriculum, in our reading curriculum, theme is a topic that's discussed in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So we had to give our roller coasters a theme, and some of them picked log ride, some of them picked salmon run, and they had to decide a theme that they picked with their roller coaster. But we use marbles. And can you tell them a little bit about how we put some of our curriculum into the roller coaster and what you experienced?
Well, some energies that we learned about was kinetic and potential energy. And also we learned about motion and friction. And we also used the roller coaster pieces out of like
The pipe
foam,
insulation foam.
pipe insulation. And we just took the marble and using the kinetic and potential energy, it went down the roller coaster.
So we try, whether we're doing the hovercrafts or the roller coasters, we try to cross those two as well. And then even like with the hydraulics, we recently been working with hydraulics because we needed them for our salmon release vehicle. So they used squirt guns. We needed a longer piston. So they took apart a squirt gun and used that to push the salmon out. But then they started doing some hydraulic cranes. And can any of you talk about the writing assignment we had with hydraulic cranes?
We had to make a writing about our hydraulic cranes that we made out of popsicle sticks, and we had to make, the story was about our cranes that we made, and we used personification and similes in it.
And they made the hydraulic cranes come alive. And I know that we're out of time. And
It's okay. There's a couple of you.
okay. All right. But I think in the end, one of the reasons, well, again, we're really honored to be here because this is something new. We're not following any other guides out there. We have 3 teachers through 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There's multi-age going on, there's looping going on, so we're not exactly sure right now why the jump in the scores, and so we sort of attribute it just to engagement, perseverance. Did anyone want to talk? I mean, we have sort of a little chant in our hall about failure. Did anyone want to speak? Okay. All right. What do you think about failure?
Well, what we say in our hallway is failure isn't failure, it's just a step to success. And that really gets us kids pumped up because there's a lot of times where you'll fail at something, but we always know that if you fail, you'll just get better at it anyway.
So we really try to approach the day and every day of that we know we're wrong all the time. We know we're wrong and that when we do come up with an answer, that there's multiple answers to any of the problems. And so when you hear of all these projects, every single one of them has a mission. So for instance, last year when there's a lot of schools that send up rockets, but our mission was to send up a rocket and capture an image of the school from 50 feet above. And then whoever had the best image was the winner of that rocket launch. And so every time we do a mission, it's who has the best product at the end. It's not just let's do hovercrafts. Who has the best designed hovercraft? Who has the least amount of newtons when you're pulling on it on the spring scale? So it's constantly trying to get them to compete against each other. A nice, comfortable, safe competition between them. And what we're hoping for is for people to support this type of learning more. We get a lot of resistance as far as textbooks, but I think our statistics are showing the right way, and we're just really hoping that we'll get more support. for project-based learning.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as the next person's coming up, I would say,
Oh, thank you. Congratulations. Great presentation. Good to meet you. Keep working hard.
thanks for coming.
Good to
For
meet you.
having us today.
Oh, it's a magnet.
Thank you for having us.
Nice work. Thanks for coming to see us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Very nice to meet you. Great presentation.
You know, the board sees this. The board doesn't,
I get two.
Thank you very much for having us today.
Okay, thank you. Very nice job.
Thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. They're wonderful kids. They're good kids.
before we call our next folks, oh, thank you. Would you like this seat? They're looking for a new. Yeah, the search started.
Search closed.
You think it'll last that long?
Yeah, I hope.
can work
I
with
hope.
Randy.
The quicker the better. Can I just say, sir, Mr. Nichols, I do want to point out that we see often teachers and students, but for those that don't have this experience, this isn't just about engagement. We just watched a master teacher.
Yeah.
The way you engaged them, the way you, you know, I do this a lot, in buildings a lot, and it's very much to your credit that you've gotten them to be the ones to speak and prepared, and thank you so much for your
They
dedication.
do a better job and they look better.
The next person to speak is Thomas Harwood, followed by Marion Brady.
Good afternoon. I won't take up a lot of your time. I know you have a busy schedule today, and I'm actually very humbled by the fact that I'm following such incredible students from Stockbridge and the engagement that Mr. Flanagan mentioned that they have for science and the love for science, obviously, and all the other educational programs that they have. My name is Dr. Thomas Harwood. I'm the superintendent of the Grosse Pointe Public School System. And I have the pleasure of working very closely with Mr. Gary Aboud. And as we had spoken a few weeks ago in the hallway, I recognized that it was approximately about 1 year ago that we had the pleasure of your presence in our school to very kindly surprise Gary about being awarded the Michigan Teacher of the Year for the year 2013 and 2014. Gary sat in the stands amongst the students, and we had the pleasure of surprising him on that day. And I hope that he's been and I'm sure he has been, a pleasant surprise to support all the work that you do and the service that you provide to many of the school districts across the state of Michigan. So as we talked a couple weeks ago, I came to realize that Gary is only a few weeks away from finishing his work with you. And I just wanted to be able to come and tell you how much we wish to thank you for identifying Gary as the Michigan Teacher of the Year. He's been an incredible gift to our school system. We've been very fortunate and blessed to have him be supporting what we do in education. It's those small moments of time that he's had with our teachers, with our students, that have provided an expansion of their learning, their abilities, and their skill set that has been incredible for our school system. We were fortunate this year by Gary being the Michigan Teacher of the Year because as a school system it brought us to a newer level of achievement. It brought us to a new understanding of how we can best incorporate great instructional practices within the classroom. And in Gary's time outside the classroom, he's worked very closely with our teachers to be a teacher of teachers, which will impact so many more students. It seemed a little weird going into this school year of actually pulling the Teacher of the Year out of the classroom. But we recognize that Gary has so many skills and talents that he provides much benefit to our school district, and we're better for it. So I just wanted to take the time to thank you for recognizing Gary Aboud as the 2013-2014 Michigan Teacher of the Year. I, with pride, excitement, have watched Gary present to many throughout this state and also with his time in Washington, D.C. just recently. I think his daughter's going to have a hard time, being only a few months old, to top meeting the President of the United States within just a couple months after her birth. But having Gary as a father and his wife, which I know also, she's on a great start to a phenomenal life. But once again, just wish to thank you on behalf of the Grosse Pointe Public School System for allowing us to have Gary work with you, which has also turned around and been a win-win for our school system also. So thank you.
It was a win-win for us, too.
I'm sure.
Real asset.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yes.
He's a great guy. And you only had him this year, so that's it. So we get him back, but appreciate
Thank you, Tom.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new contract.
Oh, thank you. All right, have a great day.
Thanks, Tom.
If Marion Brady would please join us, followed by Tara Walters.
I hadn't thought of that.
Thank you for letting me address this board. I'm Marion Brady. I live in Traverse City, Michigan. I'm a parent and a co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia Michigan. And I'm here today to ask you to consider how an undiagnosed and untreated reading disorder impacts children. And I want to increase the awareness about dyslexia, and hopefully it'll serve as a means to bring about effective change in literacy in our schools. I'm a mother of 5 children. 3 of them have dyslexia. According to the National Institute of Health, dyslexia affects 1 out of every 5 children in the United States, and it represents the most common and prevalent of all learning disabilities. It is the most researched of all learning disabilities, and it is the leading cause of reading failure and school dropouts in our nation, yet it is dismissed in most schools. There has been years of research and hard evidence, and still in my experience, when I asked numerous times if my children had dyslexia, it was dismissed. This caused years of delays in remediation for my children, and this is not only my experience, but many parents' experience as they try to find out why their child cannot read. As I stated earlier, I have 3 children with dyslexia. I will share one of my children's stories. My 19-year-old son is profoundly affected by dyslexia. I started questioning his language-based learning disability when he was only 2 years old, but was told by my pediatrician numerous times not to worry, as he was a twin and a boy. I knew something wasn't right, but I listened to my doctor and tried not to worry so much. Finally, during his kindergarten roundup, the screening staff listened to my concerns. He was identified as having a language level of an 18-month-old. He was then enrolled in a pre-primary impaired program. He was diagnosed with a specific learning disability in the 1st grade. He was put in pull-out reading programs, had speech therapy, and had private tutoring, which was 3 days a week after school. I asked his education team if he had dyslexia a number of times, and I was told it was an old-fashioned term that was not used anymore. I felt admonished and a bit naive, so I went along with that for years, despite my son's agonizing school life. If I had known he had dyslexia at the time, I would have been able to research the disability and put him in a tutoring program for children with dyslexia when he was young. Instead, he was put in multiple reading programs, and these reading programs did not address his dyslexic mind and the way dyslexics learn. I'm sure they work for children who had delayed reading problems, but this was not my son's issue. He had a dyslexic brain, and the process of reading is different than non-dyslexics. So none of these programs worked. His teachers were frustrated. He felt even worse as the special programs that were designed to help him did nothing for him. I was scared for him. Want to fast forward to 7th grade. He was reading at a 1.8 grade reading level. He worked extremely hard to keep up and developed strategies that tied into his strong visual memory. He was doing very well in science and math. In 7th grade, he was receiving speech therapy services and had classroom accommodations as well as resource room. This is the year, though, through a chain of events, a series of events, that I had him tested for dyslexia. He was identified as having profound dyslexia, and I learned that he was, as well as all people with dyslexia, he required a very specific targeted remediation. It needs to be language-based, multisensory, structured, sequential, cumulative program that uses all 3 learning modalities: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. He was tutored at the Grand Traverse Dyslexia Association, which used those methods. His diagnosis of dyslexia and his effective tutoring was when his life changed. He was finally in a tutoring program that remediated his dyslexia. Fast forward again. As a freshman in high school, he was reading at a 4th grade reading level with good comprehension. His reading level would have been better if he had been identified earlier. He still continues with his Orton Gillingham tutoring and has made further gains. With his diagnosis of dyslexia and his remediation, he was able to understand what he was dealing with. The more he learned about his dyslexia, the more he was able to identify his strengths and learn how to advocate for himself. He took total responsibility for his education. Imagine the struggle he had and the effort it took him to be successful in high school. But with his knowledge about dyslexia, he knew he was smart and capable. I need to list some of these successes, as he was identified early on in high school as a student who may have to graduate with a personal curriculum modification. But he didn't. He graduated cum laude. He was the local ISD's Math and Science and Technology Student of the Year. He had Lake Michigan All-Conference Athletic and Academic Excellence Award. He was a Life Leadership Rotary Scholarship recipient, Kiwanis Student of the Month, Career Tech Outstanding Student. He received 4 academic scholarships. He made the Dean's List in his current first year as an engineering tech student at Northwestern Michigan College in Traverse City. My son's remediation changed his life, but the road he took was very long and extremely difficult. But he arrived. We need to make this journey easier for other children.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Tara Walters, followed by Tricia Miller.
Hi, and thank you for having us be able to speak during public comment. My name is Tara Walters. I am also from Traverse City. My husband and I have 3 children in the public school system. Currently, in Michigan, 38.7% of 3rd graders are not proficient in reading. Those in the aspects of the educational field and our lawmakers are continually looking at ways how to make this better. There's many things that you do. Right now, I know we have focus schools, we have the Dropout Challenge, we have the next new initiative called the Read Now Network in Kent County, and at the end of last year, we were presented with HR 511 and 5411 to retain children in the 3rd grade who are not proficient in reading. I would like to tell you about my 6th grader. His name is Owen. Owen is smart, he is funny, he is a gifted athlete. He works extremely hard at school. He would have been one of those children that would have been a casualty had that law been in place 3 years ago, because he would have had to be retained in school. Owen had reading interventions year after year, and in the 3rd grade he hit the wall. He was frustrated. We were frustrated. He worked extremely hard. The interventions that were given to him every year seemed to not be working like they should and that you would expect. He progressed very slowly, if at all. He wasn't at grade level. Having 2 children ahead of our 3rd one, I question Owen's abilities with reading, writing, and spelling year after year with the teachers that I respected and trusted. I was told the same story when I brought up the possibility of dyslexia. I heard the same things year after year. He is a boy. This is developmental. This is a medical diagnosis. He'll grow out of it. I don't know anything about dyslexia. I can't talk about dyslexia. Isn't that when somebody sees things backwards? When he was in third grade, I shared the same concerns again about his academics with his teacher. This was 3/4 of the way through third grade. I was told he didn't want to do the work. I was told he cries a lot. I was told that he had an attention problem. I had put years of trust in the system, and the system was failing my child. Sorry. I was begging for help. I got nowhere. We had to find a solution for this child who was struggling. Thank you. His self-esteem was so low, he felt inadequate. He felt so stupid. It was a scary time as a parent. The day I left that classroom and walked through the hall that was quiet that you could hear a pin drop, I left the school in tears. I was determined as a mom to find a solution for my child because the school was not helping me. I researched dyslexia and found out that Owen had many signs of being dyslexic. So we had him screened outside of the school, as well as we started the IEP process in the school system. After both testing sessions were complete, my instincts were right, and he was shown to have dyslexia. In the school system, he qualified for special education services under specific learning disability, and the services would start the following school year. We started him in private tutoring over the summer immediately once we found out, because we knew we couldn't wait any longer. I see the education system working through all of the reading initiatives and all of the programs that our taxpayer dollars are spent on, and no one is asking why. Why is a child unable to read? Why can this child not spell? Dyslexia is the most common learning disability. It affects 1 in 5 people, and it is hereditary. Yet when a child struggles with reading, writing, and spelling in the school system, the word is not even uttered as a possible problem. I know that. I have lived it. Dyslexia is a learning disability. Dyslexia or a learning disability was never even looked at when I brought it up. It is unknown territory in our school system, yet it profoundly affects one's academics. Owen had years of interventions that did not work and time that was wasted, waiting and waiting. Although all of these programs are made with good intentions, they are not the proper scientific-based intervention for a child who has dyslexia. How much do you know about dyslexia? I guess I'm done.
No,
We do have a packet of information for you. We have letters from parents around the state, from all areas of the state, that have written to legislators regarding the House bill that was put forth in the fall in last year. But all of them share the same stories that we have, and there's also a lot of information and things on dyslexia in there. And thank you for your time.
thank you.
The next speaker.
May I just ask Dr. Kiesler maybe to meet with you for just a moment? I'd like us to know a little more about your specific situation. Dr. Kiesler will meet with you for just a moment. And then would recommend also, this would be helpful for the House committees when appropriate to hear this same testimony that actually are taking up those bills. So thank you for this.
The next speaker is Tricia Miller, followed by Betty Crowder.
Hello. I have just one set of handouts, and I'm just going to pass it on each side. One per person. They are double-sided. My name is Tricia Miller. Thank you so very much for the privilege of coming to meet you. As a high school science educator, I often see different things come across my email with many of your names, and it's kind of nice, I have to say, to kind of make a connection with you, the names that I see with the faces. So I have to say, from the high school science teacher, thank you so much just for listening to me. I'm here today to talk to you on behalf of my students. the wonderful people that they are and the people that I consistently represent every day, and I love them. So I wish I could have brought them. I'm not sure how happy you would have been with a whole bunch of high school kids, but that would have been a blast, wouldn't it have? Maybe some other time. So food for thought. So I came to talk to you today just a little bit about the science practices that we're looking at implementing into our new curriculums for all, basically, high school science and then on down K through 12. I'm the head of my science department, so we're in the midst of beginning to talk about how do we do this transition from the high school content expectations to the NGSS practices, and what does that look like in our classroom, and how do we do that? So I'm actually really excited about these 8 practices that we're talking about and looking at trying to consistently implement in our classrooms. So kind of wanted to say, the major difference really between the high school content expectations, specifically in science, I don't want to speak for other subjects, but into the NGSS is this idea of this 3-dimensional learning model of how we're going to try to educate our students now. So, I want to look at the content, of course, as always, that's really important, but kind of this aspect of asking, what does a 3-dimensional learner look like? So if we look at the content, and then we look at these 8 practices, and then we look at these over unifying themes that are called the cross-cutting concepts, which are denoted as a CCC in the NGSS. So I love this, and I'm really excited to talk today just about how I'm using that in my classroom, and how I just want to say thank you very much for all the work that everybody has done in science education, both in the past and in the future. I'm excited about our future with our students and preparing them. But so I kind of talked a little bit about this 3-dimensional learner, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about why we call them the practices, and how I take that very personally in my classroom to tell my students, we're talking about a practice because it's the blending of now what you know and then what skills you have. So kind of not only am I interested in what we know in our content, but what do we do with what we know? And so that's something that we're consistently trying to use in our classrooms now, is this idea of we really want to use the word practice with our students now and teach them. These are the 8 practices. They're on the wall. These are the things that we're going to be using our content and trying to accomplish these goals. And so the term practice I just like to use all the time now with the students as we're trying to consistently transition into our new NGSS. So, oh, and I just looked up and glanced at the clock. Realized it wasn't running, so I'm sorry. Oh, I just, I apologize.
You lucked out. Wow.
That's operator error.
So anyway, I'll be fast anyway, I promise. So the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is this idea of, when I look at the practices and I look at the things that I really want to impart to our students, is this concept of STEAM, which you guys may or may not have heard of. I know a lot of people have heard of STEM, but I like STEAM because it adds, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And as a personal perspective, I speak as a mom. I have 2 sons, both who wants to be different types of engineers, and my son is graduating high school this year. And I was looking at some of his project that he's done with a 3D printer and noticing how much art he is utilizing with the 3D printer in his engineering classes, and how important that actually is going to be for our future jobs. So I really like to use STEAM when I talk about kind of what we're going to be trying to get our kids to do as a job, when they get into the competitive global market. So I'm just talking to you about that as a perspective as a mom, but also as a science teacher. I just really want to consistently be talking to our students about STEAM and teaching them what those acronyms are and what their competitive job market's going to look like, and what type of skill sets with their knowledge, and calling that a practice so that our students are graduating with kind of a knowledge of what the curriculum is and why it's there. Because I sometimes feel like our students don't know that part. Like, what is the driving force behind how people are making decisions about not only what you're learning, but how you're learning it, and then how they're going to apply it. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about regarding why I used STEAM instead of STEM. So that's obviously a science educator and also personal perspective as a mom of 2 sons who love engineering, and I can see their future hopefully in some type of art-inspired mathematics and science education jobs. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, and flipping the page over, is just kind of why do I feel so strongly about this concept of using STEAM and applying those 8 practices. And there's 2 main points. Obviously there's many, and I'm not saying anything that everybody in this room, I'm sure, doesn't think, feel, or has discussed in many different ways. But I feel that our country needs students with diverse experiences, and they have to have that integrated knowledge now. with very strong skill sets. So I'm excited to talk to my students about, for example, plate tectonics, but in the concept of, if you talk about plate tectonics, then you talk about convection, you talk about force, which is physics and earth science, then you talk about the chemistry of the density or things like that. That integrated knowledge now our students are getting, and I'm so excited about that because that's kind of how the NGSS is written, is the integrated performance expectations. So I'm excited about that. And then the next one that I feel is a very personal goal for trying to consistently do for my students is that they need to learn how to compete a little bit and meet deadlines and kind of understand that's going to be part of their professional career as well as working collaboratively. They have to be able to choose materials and follow budgets and make those decisions based on logic, and those 8 practices I think really lend to that. So that's all I wanted to say, and I wanted to make sure I kind of ended where I thought the clock might have started. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And our first item this afternoon is on our vision for science education, that if you're able to stay for a little bit, you might enjoy.
Absolutely, planning on it. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, I believe our final speaker, is Betty Crowder, unless someone else has a form that they've not turned in.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Betty Crowder. I have, for the past 44 years, I've had the pleasure of working with elementary, middle school students, teachers, both in service and pre-service, curriculum developers and consultants, in a variety of capacities to support science education. Most recently, and for the past 14 years, I have been teaching at Oakland University K-8 science methods as an adjunct professor. My passion is with science education and in nurturing the wonder and curiosity within our learners, both young and mature, to explore the world while attempting to make sense and improve the quality of all that surrounds us. It's not a secret that the world is changing faster than it ever has. We're living in a world where sound decisions on important health, environmental, and energy issues will require that we educate and graduate the best and the brightest in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. These decisions permeate every aspect of our life. Yet, we are well aware that our scores risk falling behind other countries. As a nation, we are concerned. Even with the national and state standards, the U.S. experiences continuing shortfalls in our students' scientific proficiency. Why? Well, simply stated, in my opinion, teaching and learning science are challenging tasks for a variety of reasons. Utilizing the books Ready, Set, Science and a framework for K-12 science education provides several important considerations. First of all, our educational system is decentralized. We're fortunate in Michigan to have science standards or content standards for all our areas to guide instruction. However, they're confined to our borders, and as our students move beyond our borders, there's little consistency among the states. Secondly, teachers are often not supported to do the job they are asked to do. Teachers should be honored with the time, the tools, the knowledge, and the resources they need. Teachers, after all, are our most valuable resource in improving science education and the most important agents of change in education. Additionally, many of our elementary and middle school teachers are not adequately prepared to teach science. Perhaps their pre-service education was incomplete, or their in-service professional training is lacking. They may not be familiar with the areas of science they are asked to teach, or the pedagogy of best practice. New research points to a different kind of science education that embraces different ways of thinking about science, different ways of thinking about students, and different ways of thinking about science education. This new science education is brilliantly outlined in the framework for the K-12 science education. Since the adoption of the framework, a statewide effort to begin a conversation among teachers of teachers in science education has been established to look carefully at how we in Michigan are preparing our pre-service teachers to teach quality science K through 12. National teacher education standards guide the kind of knowledge to be addressed and how particular programs and courses can be implemented for prospective teachers. A National Research Review Committee, however, found that there is virtually no systematic information on the content or practices within the programs across the state. There's little known about what is actually offered. Our Michigan committee which has been recently formed, of teacher educators, is discovering a wide diversity of course offerings and expectations within the science education realm. To my knowledge, this is the first time a group such as this has assembled to discuss the improvement, collaboration, and need for consistency among teacher education programs within the state. And I believe this is a huge step in the right direction. Our first step will be to provide science courses and experiences that will provide thorough grounding in best practice. Although this group is in its infancy, I lost my page. Excuse me. Oh boy. Although this group is in its infancy, their task is tantamount to improving the science programs within each of our educational institutions. How do we do this? We do this by looking at the practices. The 8 practices that Tricia just mentioned are essential to developing that science education program. And for me, I feel it's a brilliant start. We must teach our students, I'm sorry, there's so much I wanted to share with you, and now I don't have it. Well, I'll just go ahead. So, essentially, it's important that our students understand what science is and what science teachers do. At the beginning of each semester, I give my students an informal survey asking them what is science, how do they feel about science, and why do we teach science to our elementary and middle school students. The kinds of responses I receive from them are things such as science is the study of the environment, it's the study of the physical sciences, it's the study of natural science. Most of the responses I receive deal with the content of science, and which actually, is an important piece. It is one of those cornerstones of the foundation that Tricia was mentioning. And content is important, yet it's not what we really want to see our students learning. We want our students to learn to think and act like scientists and not just have the content knowledge. So through multiple activities and applications, we try to move the student from the knowledge of science to the actual practices of science. And by doing this, we can provide multiple activities and applications that science essentially are engaged in the science and engineering practices as outlined in the framework. I do sincerely believe that the practices provide the perfect foundation to support science teaching. So let's look at a sample of how we would explore the practices in our science methods course. One of my favorite activities that I do with the students is a peek into the life cycle of a mealworm. And I do this because I know that in nearly every elementary school in Michigan, our pre-service teachers are going to be involved with critters of some kind, and they honestly do not like them. So we utilize the mealworms to not only introduce the practices, but we utilize the mealworms to provide a comfort level for our elementary teachers. I also utilize the 5E model to develop inquiry and investigation that promotes the practices as outlined in the frameworks. So the first of the practices is to ask questions. I'll provide each of my students with a few mealworms without telling them exactly what they are, and honestly most don't know, to observe and draw. They develop a list of questions elicited through their observations. Some questions may be answered through research, while others may require the students to conduct an investigation. Next, they develop models, which is the second practice. Develop and use models. As students explore the needs of their newly adopted friends, they develop a model of a habitat in which the mealworm will thrive. They do this through research, drawings, and the construction of model habitats. Next, they will plan and carry out investigations. They develop an inquiry investigation to either answer one of their original questions or develop new questions to investigate. For example,
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you begin to wrap it up, please?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Do mealworms prefer light or dark? Do they And they'll learn to control variables and conduct an investigation. They'll analyze their data, use mathematical thinking, engage in argument from evidence. This is an example how we practice and model the science practices. Every science and engineering lesson is always a language lesson, but elementary teachers have a tendency to teach language instead of science. And so I carefully craft the experiences they have within our methods courses to teach them that language is essential to doing science. We need to learn to write and read and communicate, but they, in a sense, need to actually put as much energy into the practices of science as they do the language arts. Because approximately 75% of our elementary education method students are English language arts majors. As a teacher of future science teachers, it's my responsibility to equip students with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to teach science. Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you'd like to email or leave.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's fine.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, that's fine.
Before we go on to the next item, I wanted to just warn the board that in 2015, when I retire, I only live a few minutes away, and I'm going to be here for public participation every meeting with my opinion about. No, we do appreciate this. It does give us a perspective on where you are on different issues, so thanks for taking the time to be here, all of you. And I want to take a moment. When I was a 30-something superintendent, one of my mentors is in the audience today, Jack Maudsley. Would you kind of just wave, Jack? Jack was the superintendent in Battle Creek, went on to Kellogg Foundation, and admired by all, but great help to me, and thanks. Glad to see you here today, sir. Just do that, yeah. This is a time we each, it's great in a way to be coming out of this depression that we're in, not psychologically, but the economic one, because we get to see new employees every month. And some of it was a retirement bubble, kind of, as I will be next year. But some of it's also just, we've gotten new divisions. We didn't have CTE when I first came here. We didn't have the Library of Michigan when I first came here. We didn't have the Office of Great Start. And so anyway, this is our time once a month, and it's been more and more. I meet with new employees on a Monday morning, every Monday morning, and our team's going to be introduced by the appropriate deputies right now. The team's getting stronger. We have a good one to begin with, but man, the quality that's coming in is just outstanding. I think we start with Kyle, and then...
Yes, thanks, Mike. It's my pleasure to introduce the newest team members to the Office of School Support Services, all of whom work in our child nutrition programs and our grants unit. And given the number, I want to ask Caitlin to take it off and introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her work.
I'm Caitlin Roan, and I'm working in the Office of School Support. As Kyle mentioned, I'm working most directly with the Summer Food Service Program, which provides meals for free and reduced population areas.
I'm Deb Williams. I'm working also in school nutrition programs, and I have been hired to oversee the National School Lunch Program, and I'm doing the resource management reviews, so we can make sure that the money that the schools are getting is actually going for what it should be, and it's the children. So I'm out there cracking the whip.
I'm Dan Carlson. I'm a departmental analyst in school nutrition programs, and I was hired to make sure that those programs are being administered properly.
Diane Mitchell, I'm a department analyst with the school nutrition program, and we're out there in the field checking to make sure that Healthy Hungry Free Act, you're following those guidelines.
I'm Catherine Foreman. I work in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. I'm supply administrative support to our departmental analysts when they're out in the field.
Hello, my name is Joshua Long, and I support the grants coordination area as a financial analyst. My role involves submitting various grant expenditure reports, as well as helping to support the school reform office by monitoring the budget.
We all know, by the way, this is our new deputy superintendent, Kyle. Kyle Garant is literally, a week and a half into this. For those who don't know, is promoted from within and been director of that major department that most of your folks are new to right now, and we're trying to backfill that position as we speak. And Vanessa.
Okay, from Ed Services, Education Services, we only actually have one. She's directly behind me, so I'm not going to stand up. So could you introduce yourself, please, Therese?
Good afternoon. My name is Therese Walsh, and I'm a financial analyst in Office of Field Services, and I'm working on allocations for Title I and Title II programs.
Joseph.
And in Accountability Services, we are delighted to have Sean. And Sean, would you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sean Kotke, Office of Professional Preparation Services, work with our Michigan's educator preparation institutions on program approvals and national accreditation.
Marty?
There's one more. When Ross Fort graduated to become a special assistant to Carol Willenberg and now Kyle Grant, we had the fortunate opportunity to bring someone else in to do the work of a legislative analyst. And I'm very proud to introduce Caroline Leatham. What she's going to be doing is not only legislative analyses, but also continue with constituent work with the legislative offices, as well as other duties. So Caroline, would you please introduce yourself?
You did my job for me. But yep, I'm Caroline Leatham, very excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Craig's not here, but I asked him at lunch if you were Ford School grad, so I don't know if you did you have Craig at all as a?
I did not have him as a professor,
Okay.
but yep, I actually met him in my last job. And
Okay.
it's nice to have people around.
Well, good. We don't want everyone contaminated by that view of the world.
You're not cynical and jaded.
I'm kidding. He's great with the students. I've done some classwork with him. So glad you're all here, and you're welcome to stay until 7 o'clock like the rest of us tonight. So, or you're welcome to stay for just part of that meeting. So thanks for being here. And we have big interest in science today, and we're still kind of continuing our morning session. So we're back on to Committee of the Whole, and then I'll adjourn and get into our afternoon session in a moment. Or not in a moment, but when we're done with this. This is an important opportunity for us. I'll ask Vanessa and Linda and Steve to join us at the table. We promised the board we kind of regularly update on science, and we wanted to kind of give you this vision for science education, as we call it. The test scores in science continue to struggle. We've got less than 20% of our fifth graders proficient in science, about 20% eighth graders. And so this presentation is really intended to provide a vision for what science education could be in Michigan, and it'll kick off with a number of updates addressing the range of these implementation considerations that we have. I'll turn it over to Deputy Vanessa Kiesler, please.
All right. Well, like Mike said, this is really kind of a big picture presentation, I think, about what a high-quality science experience for our children might look like in Michigan. So with that, I'm actually just going to turn it over to Linda Ford and Stephen Best for the bulk of this presentation. So,
Good afternoon. We thought that it might be a good idea as we begin the science discussion that's going to span a few months if we just started with what might the vision be? What might we be looking at? What might we need to consider as we go forward? And so for this presentation and for our work, we have the following objectives in mind and things that we would like to see us be able to achieve. First would be to provide a potential vision of what it could look like across the state. You saw some examples earlier today. Those elementary school students are doing project-based learning around scientific concepts, and they're learning a lot of science without even being actively engaged in that, but rather in collecting water and doing something with it and using their robotics. So it's a way to get at science and turn kids into scientists rather than in learning the factoids that go with it. We'd like to figure out ways to engage kids in a meaningful scientific instruction so that we can have kids who are career and college ready. And we also would like to highlight some components of science education that will need our focus as we go forward. So it seemed to me that we ought to start with where are we today, and as Mike pointed out, our science scores have been trending upward, but on a very slow rate, and in fact, not nearly as quickly as we might like them to. So this gives you a look at what we've got in science education right now. Both 5th, 8th, and 11th grade scores. You'll notice that rapid downturn in the yellow one. That's only because the data are not available yet. So don't take that as we dove off the edge there. We don't know what that is at this point. So once we get the high school data, we'll be able to add that in. But you'll note that while we're in the 20s and 30s and we've trended up, we have really stayed kind of flat overall. We don't have the steady incline that we're going to need. Remember that 85% is the target that we've set for English language arts and mathematics with our flex waiver. And we would presume that that might be a similar target that we'd like to aim for in science education as well. So we're a little flat right now. One of the tools that we can use in trying to determine how we're doing, what's going on in the classrooms, is a tool called, I'm drawing a blank, SEC, Survey of Enacted Curriculum. And in the Survey of Enacted Curriculum, we ask teachers to graph out what it is that they are doing in their classrooms with their curriculum. This is the ideal for middle school, and when you see the darker it gets, the more concentrated the effort should be, and we're trying to get people to be very focused and very targeted. The second one over, the one that we see most of the dark concentrations, relates to data and analytical trends. So the ability to take data and analyze it is a major focus of what our current standards ask at the middle school level. Let's compare this to what is going on in priority and focus schools, which is the only place that we can require this to be done. And you will note that there is very little concentration. You will note that we are basically going a mile wide and an inch deep, to use a phrase that's well known in this state, and that we are not spending any quality time to speak of on data and analysis. And so we have a long ways to go. So what do we need in Michigan today? This graphic attempts to share with you where we were in the year 2006 with two kinds of positions, both of which are needed in our society. We certainly aren't saying otherwise. One of them is science and engineering-based occupations, and the other one is construction and extraction-based occupations. Both of them necessary. But you'll notice that in 2010, when we took a look at them again, the ones that were science and engineering-based had continued to go up in spite of the downturn in the economy, while those that were construction and extraction-based had taken a decided nosedive. We anticipate that by 2020, thanks Steve, by 2020, you'll see that we're going to need more and more science and engineering-based occupations. We will not be needing as many construction, although that will have an uptick in it as we go forward. This one is another way of looking at what do we need. And this is very small print. I understand it's hard to read. But what you will see is that we need a variety of positions. These are some of the most highly considered. And of them, you'll note that we are going to need people who are able to do a variety of jobs, but we need more those who can give us STEM-based jobs. What can we do in order to get the science and technology, engineering, and math all pulled together into jobs and into positions? A lot of the positions on this chart do not provide a sustainable wage. So that's an important piece. Needs are for science literacy, a strong understanding of how you use science to make decisions in your life. Even if you are not going to make a living off from science-based positions, you need to be able to use science in your everyday life, and it impacts us every day. In addition to that, another piece of what we need is people who can be innovative. We need engineers. We need people who can be creative, because that's where some of the new jobs will be taking us as we move forward. And so having kids who have the background in innovation and are free to create and free to think through solutions will lead us to that kind of a student. And so this just kind of projects towards where we need to go. Those of you who have not yet met Steve will find that we were very lucky to get him. and that he's got a strong background from that other institution down the street. But it's a strong one and a very good one, and it was in science education and in helping people learn how to use science. And so we're blessed to have him on our team. I feel really, really lucky. He's going to share with you some of the things that are working or that we would like to see put in place.
Thank you so much. In order to try and give a vision today, we wanted to start off with really a picture of what things look like now in the state. But also, in looking at this vision, we first wanted to give you a sense of where this vision comes from. Back in 2011, the National Research Council developed the framework for K-12 science education. This was developed through collaborations with higher education, scientists, and business and industry. There were 4 different groups that were lead groups. In fact, Michigan had one of the 4 people who was ahead in this area. What they were focusing on was the base of research that we have now on science education to really tell us what works and what doesn't, and what are the needs in the field. And so you can see there was a lot of input from all of these areas. One of the things in particular that they wanted to focus on was when they were looking at what the needs really are, they also were looking at the picture of science education that we've had over the past 15 years and understanding that there were a lot of nostalgic practices and policies that were still being held on to in our classrooms. And so part of what we wanted to do is really find ways to look at what the practices should look like and let go of nostalgia where appropriate. What I wanted to do in sharing this vision with you is to look at this practice from a child. Getting an example here of Gary, who I know has a 1-month-old daughter?
2 months.
2 months old, all right. Of thinking of her through the years going through our systems and thinking of the kinds of things that we need and want to focus on. We know from research from neuroscientists, from pediatricians, and from others that inherently children are really a lot like scientists. They engage in a practice like scientists of observing the world, recognizing patterns, trying to make connections, and trying to look at differences in order to better understand the world they live in. These are the kinds of practices in early childhood that we really want to focus on. We think of the kinds of things that are done in literacy now, where we know there's a lot of research out there suggesting that one of the most important things we can do is to have parents read to their children. Well, the same is true in terms of science. In science, it's to have kids observe the world, play with the world. Sometimes when it's even scary, like the large tarantula sitting on that glove there. And also to really interact with the world, to try new things, to try and experiment with the world, to get our hands dirty, whether making slime, as in the picture here, or making cookies, as in the picture on the left. All of these are forms of investigation. As early as childhood, before kindergarten, kids can really get into these kinds of practices and ask the questions that we know they always want to ask. I've been asked the question many times of, why is the sky blue? Why is snow white? Why are all of these different things happening? And the answer and response we want to do to encourage our kids is to engage them in these discussions. We may not have the answers, but we don't want to shut them out. As kids get into elementary school, then we can look at some different practices that become a little more formalized in the school environment. Some of this includes doing observations with children. Here an example of looking at some animals in particular and recognizing that the observations we engage in are not just the things that we do with our eyes, but are things that we listen for, that we look for in patterns, that we feel, we touch, those kinds of things. Hopefully not taste here. But these are focused observations that are done to address questions. It's no longer kind of the open area, but an opportunity for teachers to focus the work that children are doing and to look at some different examples of how these things might play out. Here, part of what we see are some students who were working on trying to understand the notion of what does this animal that the young lady here is holding on to, what does it need to live? What does it eat? Where does it live? What kind of environment does it need to have? What does it like in terms of light and dark and other things? And investigating these kinds of things and doing so with other children. Part of this is really this notion of thinking and acting like scientists. And then, as you can see from the report generated on the side, of reporting this information out, of sharing it. Part of the practices that we know that scientists engage in, that we need to make sure our kids do, is to collaborate with one another. Science is not a practice of isolation. What kinds of things might we expect to see from students at this level? This is actually the work of a student in the elementary grades who is doing the kind of work that we hope to see. And we heard some wonderful examples here earlier today as well. She was doing an investigation on what kind of painkillers affect the heart rate of a particular tadpole. She was engaged in this process because part of what they were focusing on was they recognized that we use animals sometimes to model people. And we then can perform investigations to figure out what the impact is going to look like. Here we actually see her data table. All I really did is copy these out of her own presentation, literally. And so you can see the kind of data that's being generated here. Quantitative data, observational data, data that informs the investigation that she has of this particular question.
What grade did you say that was, Steve?
What's that?
What grade did you say?
She was in 5th grade at the time. She's in 6th grade now. In fact, her teacher is back here with the Van Andel Institute, which is where they were doing this work. This is actually the written work from the students. One of the things that is really important in science is we don't want scientists to be isolated. We also don't want in the school environment to isolate the sciences from other content areas. Science connects with mathematics and language arts in a variety of ways. Here you can see the claim, evidence, and reasoning that this particular student was making regarding that investigation you saw earlier. Part of what we want to engage kids in is recognizing that the work of scientists is also the work of communicating and of analyzing data. And here you can see some examples of that, as well as the work she was doing trying to share out the results of her findings. In addition to that, part of what they are doing is making predictions. She reported out additionally in this particular presentation what her predictions were for future investigations, what sources of error she might have had in the investigation itself, what her confidence is in the results given the equipment she was working with and given the time and other constraints she had, and then what other kinds of questions she might want to investigate. These are the kinds of things we hope children in elementary grades, late elementary grades, should be able to do. These are the kinds of opportunities we've had in some instances, though rarely, in our state. These are the kinds of things we want to focus on. In the middle grades, this kind of experience only deepens in a variety of ways. Part of what we recognize about adolescent learners in middle grades is that this is the time when they often disengage from learning. We can look at data that's out there and we see that there's this track of kids moving away from the content areas in particular. But this is really a rich opportunity that we have to support this learning. We do so by asking some of the same kinds of questions we saw earlier, but part of what we can do now in a middle grades environment is get kids to investigate different concepts all at the same time. Gone should be the days of having the entire class investigate one particular question all together at the same time and coming up with the same answers and results in those canned kinds of experiments that I'm looking at John and seeing we all did as students. Rather, part of what we can see are the kinds of questions that kids might really engage in, and recognize that there are all sorts of different questions that can then be investigated to deepen their understanding at this level. And they can perform these kinds of investigations and then collaborate and share with each other so that the class really acts as a scientific community, much like the scientific community actually does. We have one particular example I just wanted to share of this kind of experience. What you're looking at is actually a map of the Grand River watershed. Some of you might be able to pick out Grand Rapids and the river itself. There was an investigation of the same question that you saw on the previous slide that 16 different schools were doing around the Grand Rapids area. Students were looking at one point on the east, doing some different water quality studies, and their classrooms were connecting and collaborating with other classrooms around the city. Again, these 16 classrooms. Part of what they were able to do in these investigations is they recognized that some different water quality indicators, such as nitrites, phosphates, and fecal coliform levels, were really, really low at the east point, but suddenly really, really high at the west point of the city. What happened here is the classrooms collaborated with each other. The teachers shared their results among classrooms and among schools, and they were able to identify by mapping out the different points, dates, and time of their investigations and their data that they saw a particular storm that had come through, hit a particular set of golf courses on the northern end of the city, washed down a lot of nutrient and fertilizer that then came into the water basin. That was a collaborative kind of investigation that we really want to see, the kinds of things we hope to see from our students. A few other very quick points here, since you heard a lot of these examples earlier. At the high school level, part of what we can do is really go beyond these in-depth questions and start integrating the sciences, because we recognize that science is, as we heard from some others today, no longer one of these things where biology, chemistry, and physics are done separately, but rather the questions that we ask are questions like the ones you see here that branch across topics and branch across areas. They are cross-cutting concepts that can then be investigated through project-based work or the study of authentic problems. If we look at a problem like the one on the last slide here about producing electricity, we can get a range of different investigations going on. An example from one of the high schools here in Michigan that decided to integrate all of their content at the high school level had students doing an exploration of solar-powered cars and whether they could make it from a point in the central U.S. to one of the coasts, given all the weather systems that were going on. You get a mix of the study of physical sciences, engineering, and earth science all in one problem. The beauty of this is we don't have to limit this to the kind of thing that we see here. Here you see an example of students who took it the next step of developing solar-powered cars from kits. Other students took this a step further, where they modified existing toy cars for children to develop electric-based models that were sustainable models of transportation. Here, some students took it even further to the point where they developed a solar-powered car. In fact, this solar-powered car that you see in the example today, even though you hear from my institution and others about their solar car every 3 years or so and how proud they are of it, it was this group of high school students that actually set a world record by being the first to go across the entire country in the solar-powered car. It wasn't a college team or a professional team. It was a group of high school students. These are the kinds of things that we can do and explore when we when we look at this notion of design and investigation at its fullest potential.
I would submit to you that that is a picture of engagement. Students are actively engaged in the learning, and they care, and they are wanting to find out what they can from the experiment, and that shows what we'd like to do with all students. To do that, though, it's not just science standing alone, and our office can't possibly do this without considering some other kinds of issues that have to be addressed. And so in order to get to quality science instruction, we would suggest to you that all of the concepts that are listed on this next slide are important. But I would say to you that while we're going to be looking at all of them over the next few months, we will especially be bringing back to you conversations about what aligned assessments would have to look like, both at the state level and at the local level. We would look forward to discussing teacher prep considerations and certification, and what kinds of issues do we have to address in professional development. And so as we move forward with this vision and trying to develop a view of what we'd like to see in science education, those are some of the things that we'll be addressing moving forward. Before we get to the last slide, I just would like to recognize Greg Dion is in the room, and he is the supervisor for the unit that takes care of this kind of work for instruction and curriculum, and is leading the team. And then, where do we want to be?
Greg, you want to wave, Greg, so we know who you are? Yeah,
Did anybody else come in?
You wore a tie today, Greg.
Dressed up and spiffed up. So what is our goal in terms of proficiency in the state? We would like to get to that 85%. We would like to get to there by 2022. The work for science can be integrated with English language arts and mathematics quite easily. And we think that we can at least make a strong effort to get there. We would like to share with you some of the considerations in order to help us reach that goal going forward.
You know, by the way, Stephen, you need to get and show enthusiasm about this stuff. You know, you kind of just.
I know.
Yeah.
I just don't have enough energy.
No.
I thought institution you were referring to.
It was the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Go Blue.
I thought it was interesting. I hadn't heard this. It makes so much sense, but I hadn't heard the phraseology or the phrase nostalgic practices. Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of captures it. We mean well, we're comfortable with it, we're used to it, we've done it for years, and yet we need to move on and rethink this. So the revisioning's great, and this was kind of our first crack with the board. Over a period of time, we're going to build up, but what might be some, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome at this point. Okay, well, I guess we did the good interim for you, and thanks, guys, and I know you'll be back on this. That was step one. John, no, sorry, let me go back here a second. It's back to the regular meeting, and we're going to go first to approval of minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting of April 8th, 2014. Is there a motion, please? Moved by Dan, supported by John. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the closed session of April 8th. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by John. Supported by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you. President's report, John.
Lupe, I have 10 seconds, a 10-second report to get us back on schedule. Right. So, but I will not take long to report. You all were working on the priorities and things that I am eager for us to work on, including the dissection policy. Cassandra, Legislative Committee, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Though I don't know, as much as I love the new science directions and the new way of learning science, if we start, maybe we don't tell the folks who are worried about dissection that we're letting kids dope up the tadpoles with ibuprofen instead of metafine. We might have new policies to consider. Right, we got to watch that. Yeah. But and
I'm sure no tadpoles were hurt in the process.
We didn't see that. It wasn't an experiment that they were doing. She must have got her data wrong. It was saline that she was giving. But I was thinking about what, as always, Richard's always making me think. So when he was talking about the earning credentials with life experience, and that you could get credentials for just living, it reminded me of that Bon Jovi song, which is now going through my brain, It's My Life, over and over, where he says, I just want to live while I'm alive, or some such thing. It doesn't make much sense, but he would get a PhD in Richard's scenario. So we don't want to have that happen, but a lot of good discussion today. Seriously, though, just two quick things. One, per the discussion we had at lunch, we do want to keep hearing from stakeholders on school finance issues. So if there's anybody else that you want to make sure is asked to come, maybe over the next meeting or two, we do have some opportunity and submit their ideas, their recommendations, their analysis, because, and as I said at lunch, we do want to start soon ourselves, even before we're finished hearing from people. I would suggest starting our retreat, begin to make sense of, look at what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what people are presenting, and begin to wrestle with what does this all add up to and where does this take us in terms of our sense of direction. So that is a very deliberate process that I want to make sure we will work through, so that we're not just absorbing all this, sharing it with the public. It's useful to have people pay attention to what people think the issues are and where we might need to make some change, but we'll all need to wrestle with it ourselves. And then I just wanted to thank the team, Mike, and your team for your work on the issues of the moment, particularly on trying to encourage continued thoughtful attention, understanding of the assessment regime that might be most helpful to implement, to assess the Common Core standards. And Eileen Weiser, I know, has been very active and helpful trying to work with legislators on their understanding. So thank you, Eileen, and all for that work. So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. My report, I'm going to mainly talk about some of what I do as a job to help inform you on your big decision this coming year. But I wanted to add to that. Eileen's been great. Yeoman's work in that regard with the assessment and with legislators. Got some feedback that Lupe, you influenced a key person, whether you know it or not, so I appreciate your holding some feet to the fire with another legislator. Our own team, it's been exhausting, to be blunt. It's a constant, it's a little demoralizing, I guess, for the team when it looks like we're not answering questions enough when all we're doing is answering questions and writing reports. It started with the report over Thanksgiving weekend that our guys worked till literally midnight on Sunday. And then to be kind of inferred that we're just not getting the answers. I think not getting the answer you want is not the same as not getting the answer. So I'm going to defend the troops on that continually. I'm going to try to shut up otherwise. I probably shouldn't have said to the one gentleman this morning, I hope you hadn't printed that yet, because I really didn't mean what I said.
Erase it,
well, maybe. And then I've known Sam Singh for a long time. I do appreciate, I understand he stood on the floor and said this is department's work and the state board's work. This is their authority and we shouldn't be messing with it. So that was appreciated. And then there's others that if I start to single out, there's other legislators that have been very good about this. And even the ones where we disagree, I think it's heartfelt. Mostly, I think it's people that think it should be something different. But I'm going to say what I really believe. I think it's a big gamble on their part to, if the language stays the way it is right now. In terms of my work, I mean, just to give you a little sense again, because I think I saw your notes, John, on that, and as you're going to try to get a sense from people on what should be in this spot, I hope it's going to be helpful once a month to just kind of give you a sense. I mentioned earlier, I was just astounded that other superintendents and other kind of folks in the field basically thought this was a symbolic job. I don't work any harder than anyone else here, but I work harder than I ever did as a local superintendent or an ISD. It's not even close. And so that's kind of in the milieu. People need to understand there's work to do. If you just ran the department alone, it's a full-time job without any of the outside kind of issues. Meet new employees on Mondays, that's always a joy. You saw some of them today. I do sub-staff meetings. We do an all-staff meeting quarterly, but this past month I was with the school nutrition group and with the Office of Professional Preparation Services and with the coordinated school health and safety programs. And it's very helpful to regularly update on what their issues are because they're not always the sexy issues you would see at this level, and yet they're important. There's about $300 or $400 million worth of food, Kyle, that goes out through the department, and then even things like the summer programs that we push and don't even get all takers on this, but where there's kids hungry and we can't get takers on money that's available for summer nutrition programs that are usually, during the school year are held by schools. So these are important folks that are doing good work. Just a variation of a couple of SUPS group items. We meet basically all day on Fridays or one of the days a week. The Benton Harbor PA 436 process, I would say they've worked very hard I think this is an area where, I've said it a little more often, I said it at the Governor's Summit, we need, my view, the board has to consider them, but I think a lot more money has to go into at-risk funding. I wouldn't get rid of that one if I were some of the other groups that are looking to get rid of. And that's the only way to turn the tide, I think, on some of these schools that are in deficit and have the toughest hill to climb with kids that are high in poverty. And I think Benton Harbor, as hard as they're trying, it's a vicious cycle, and they've been very good in working with us. Carol's last kind of thing before she retired last week was working with them. It's gone to the Emergency Loan Board. We've worked through that for now, and hopefully we can come out of that process. I would say that mass consolidation isn't the right way to go in this state. However, I'm just going to say it. I mean, if Benton Harbor and St. Joe's could get together, they could take care of the problems and help serve those kids better in that area. And the obstacles that some people see there are unfortunate, because if we really cared about the kids, we would work out a system in that area that wouldn't leave kind of Benton Harbor on one side of the river with tremendous obstacles to overcome, and on the other side of the river have better situations there. Selected Randy Riley as the new state librarian, even though I use paper and interview committees who do a great job on this. I get two then and can almost throw a dart. But Randy was from within, very top-notch person, and I kind of surmised was the first choice of the committee if I had to guess. I try to not get into that because we certainly have continued to work on the flex renewal. The ongoing review and updates on legislation, I guess I'm boring you with that. A few speaking engagements, Education Summit, MCAN, some of those things that are kind of in my work. Visited a school in Ann Arbor, very impressive. It helps give me stories to tell, because part of the job, I think, is to try, when you have an occasion, to tell positive stories. And my wife thinks this is insane, but I try to give the bad news to each group. So if I speak to a chamber group, and I'm generalizing here, but if I'm speaking to a chamber group, I'm generally not going to give some negatives about what's going on in the education system right now. I want to talk about the positives, but also hear from their point of view. And if I'm talking to superintendents, I want them to hear what I think is the hard numbers, science proficiency and how we have to work better at this. But it's always great to have real stories that you and I can tell as we've seen them in action about real teachers, including some of what we saw today. I'm on the MVU board by position. I only get to go maybe once a year, the nature of the timing. Met with the community college presidents. I thought we had a good dialogue. I asked them would they co-own the idea that all kids should have access to an early college. Doesn't mean all kids have to go, but there's whole chunks of places in this state where there's not even an opportunity if you wanted that. And you heard some of that this morning in our presentation. If you didn't get the next year, the Career Techs Showcase, which I spoke a little bit about at the Governor's Summit, I just thought was outstanding, and it really shows what can be done in terms of academics and infusing them into a career tech sequence. It can be done. It's being done all over the state, and it's hard to get it at Mass. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's so great to see the ones that are making it work. A couple of Saturdays ago, did the Night for the Notables with our Library of Michigan Foundation, and it's an enjoyable night. First of all, it's not work if you get a chance to do it next year. It's the top books that have been written and selected by Michigan authors. Michigan Creative Educators Summit. They're going to present our leadership team, and I know you've got a busy agenda now, but I'd like to suggest at agenda planning sometime that we have them even have a chance at the board meeting. I think you'd be very impressed. We had a very thorough meeting with the EPI deans and directors last week. I don't know if I should say it quite this way, but I was in Grand Rapids, came back here. They had already been meeting for an hour and a half, and my job was to meet the last hour. And we went and debriefed as a team, and I said, I thought that really went well, and they all looked at me and said, well, you weren't here for the first hour and a half.
This is the education preparation,
Yes.
teacher prep institution?
Yeah, these are the teacher prep institutions. But I think our guys and that, we listen to each other. I mean, in fairness, there are issues from the prep institution's point of view. But I think we clearly worked out some of those things. There are tensions, let's face it. On the one hand, you want cut scores that say what's an appropriate entry point and exit point for teachers' proficiency. On the other hand, you don't want to go to a degree that we have a supply and demand problem or that we're not sensitive to having a diverse teacher population here with 100,000 or so teachers. So I think we're regularly meeting and working through some of that. That was helpful. I've met with the Middle Cities Education Association superintendents. That's always a lively discussion. I do my monthly Ed Alliance, had one yesterday. They're a good group to work with, and it's good for me to hear even when it's not all fun. You know, I'd rather hear and understand some of the issues than not, and it helps us recalibrate at times. We had truancy legislation meetings that I think are going well. I would say good work Ross is doing a great job organizing it, and in terms of work that Kyle's done with that team, cross-agency has been really good. I think it's going to make a big difference on, if we can't even keep the kids in school, the rest of this is lost. And you know, it has to do all the board's work on zero tolerance and the rest of that also. I think I'll skip over the rest for now, but that gives you kind of a flavor. And I've told some of the folks that have expressed an interest to watch in this part of the meeting, and you can kind of hear how sausage really is made. Not all glory. It's not all glory. I'm looking for some glory in there. I don't understand. They think it. Yes, ma'am.
I hate to interrupt a very good superintendent's report, but I want you, as part of your report, to pass out this newspaper coverage on the Smarter Balanced trial. So, I mean, I could pass it around.
Go ahead.
I hate to preempt the superintendent, but
No, I'm done.
I know that good news is something that we're not always able to share, so. Thank you. Thank you.
While you're on that, for audience members, we've gotten some feedback that the pilot on Smarter Balance, there's some problems with it. And I had a chance to say to a legislator, that's why you have a pilot. You know, we have 3.5 million that are being tested under a pilot for Smarter Balance. I think 50,000 in the state here. And we're confident most of those bugs will be worked out if we're allowed to do Smarter Balance by next year.
That was a good story and a good example of sort of the approach to trying to work out the best way to do things under the leadership here as a healthy way to do things.
Do you have a highlight in here, Eileen, that you wanted to focus?
No, but I just want you to know that I just lost my childcare because of the storms that are going on outside. So,
Are there more tornadoes today?
well, there's thunderstorms coming through, heading up to Ann Arbor, and I've got a kid who's stuck in Birmingham, so I will probably be leaving earlier. Sorry.
Tornado sirens were going off yesterday in Ann
Mine's
Arbor.
in Washington, you can't.
The airport, everyone had to go under the tunnel.
Unreliable childcare.
I'd been there a couple of days earlier.
It's tough.
So I'm complete.
You have access to good child.
Gary, Teacher of the Year, your
Should,
report,
but
sir.
My sister's went back to college, so. Well, Gary's getting set up. Reading this article is really important because it's become clear to me as we've been talking to legislators that they're only hearing about the problems. They're not hearing about the things that are actually working. So if you know any of the superintendents, there's a list. I'm not sure if it's public knowledge or not, but there is a list of the schools that had the pilot at their district. And if you know any of those principals, talking to them and seeing how it went, and then if they want to see Smarter Balance as part of their school structure in the future, they should be calling their legislator to explain what happened and how it worked for them.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Gary, if you got your superintendent to drive all the way up here to pay you homage, that's
Yep.
a pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal.
He's driving all
Quite
the
an
way.
honor.
Yeah.
It really is.
Does he get mileage, do you think?
Probably as a car.
I don't know, maybe you should
Ford,
find
I
out.
would guess.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Somebody wanted to know if he got mileage for it.
That's beyond the scope of my knowledge.
You're a science man.
No chauffeur.
No, it was, it's really interesting as I reflect, as Dr. Harwood mentioned, that it is May, and it is now nearly a full year that I've known all of you and been in this role. And of course, this is the last solo meeting that I'll be here, and then next month we'll get to meet the 2015 Michigan Teacher of the Year. But I've just been reflecting a lot lately, and I have a lot of drive time as I commute, sometimes without mileage. But to think about how it's just been a year of compressed blessings and honors of very high density. Just to use my science vocab, it's been a very high density of honor all at once. And so the last few weeks since I saw you last have been even more so a really high volume of honors. And I had the opportunity to spend some time in Washington, which I'll share a little bit more about, and you heard about that earlier this morning. But they tell me that May is supposed to be May flowers from the rain that we had in April. Apparently it's snow, and now we have showers, so it's all a bit delayed. But at any rate, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I've been up to for the last month, and then share at the end something about the statewide math science partnership project that I've been working on a little bit more heavily in the last month that will transition through the summer. So I am really getting into the idea of sharing something personal about myself. So you know that I have a 2-month-old daughter named Lena. Here she is. She had the opportunity to travel with us to Washington, D.C., and there were also 2 other state teachers of the year from Colorado and from Maryland who had new babies in March. And the 3 of us have little ones who are all within a couple weeks of each other. So the rest of our colleagues from around the country got together and surprised us with a little show and some tokens at one of the events, and they knitted us these quilts that say my favorite teacher of the year is Mommy or Daddy, and the teacher of the year from Montana, who works on a Native American reservation in a one-room schoolhouse, was able to get one of her students' parents to hand make us moccasins for the kids, which was very cool. So it's also been a very humbling experience on a personal level as well as a professional level. But professionally, the last month started out near here at the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals One-to-One Computing Summit. And this was an opportunity for a lot of administrators from the middle school and high school level to get together and talk about how technology integration and initiatives for one-to-one computing are happening and being supported in their schools. I heard a really great comment from someone just last week in Washington who said, "I'm all for one-to-one, every kid gets a violin." They're a music teacher. And while we all laughed when they said that then and now, it really made me think that we are perhaps pigeonholing some of our terms and initiatives to be perhaps a bit too focused. And so I like the idea of not looking at one-to-one, for example, just being that you get a computing device. But at some point, we had one-to-one ballpoint pens, and that was a big deal. And it's true. So the one-to-one for everything, I think, is a great idea. At any rate, I did have the opportunity to see some of you at the Governor's Education Summit, and I was honored to be invited to both give a presentation as well as to introduce Mike for his presentation there. And I had the opportunity to meet with Governor Snyder and to talk a little bit about education and some of the work that I've been doing. And it was a great experience just to connect and see some of the folks who are very active in education around the state, and to see some of you at a different table than this one was really exciting as well. And that was a great opportunity to be able to share, I think, what I would call my legacy for this year, is to be able to share some of the great stories of classrooms around the state and some of the things that I've seen in visiting these schools. To kind of take that on the road, I had the opportunity to visit DeWitt High School just a few weeks ago, and I visited their high school very specifically to see project-based learning in action. And they have a group called the DeWitt Creativity Group, and they run a creative leadership class for their high school students, and it's an elective that runs half year, and the kids do a a personal passion project throughout the year or throughout the semester, but they also learn a number of leadership, communication, and entrepreneurial skills that tie in with various literacies and have them working in small groups as well as partnering with local organizations and community organizations. This was a really great extension of, I think, what Mike was mentioning with the Creative Educators Summit. If you want to see what does it look like to do project-based learning and what could potentially be a scalable way to implement project-based learning in a school, I'd really encourage that you check out what's going on in DeWitt. And I know I've already put them in touch with my administrators in Grosse Pointe because I would love to see this class come to my high school where we can give students who are interested in entrepreneurship an opportunity to learn about it along with all of those other literacies that they need, including digital and project collaborative literacies.
You know, Jeff and Jason from DeWitt were the same ones that ran the summit, who I mentioned maybe we could get to present here. They're going to present the leadership team at some point.
Okay.
But they're the ones that took it to scale and kind of went statewide.
They're doing some really great things, and I can't say enough good about the experience of seeing it firsthand. And again, just like the young students who were here earlier, these kids did the show. They presented, they talked very authoritatively, they answered questions, and they were not shy to speak in a way that showed they had a real commanding understanding of what they were learning, and they were invested in what they were doing. Also, along with that, while I was at DeWitt High School, I learned that their high school and my high school, Grosse Pointe North, are very similar in a number of ways. And one of the ways that stood out to me is that we're both seeing tremendous gains in student achievement across the board in our subject areas. And one thing that I learned from them that I thought was really great, and I've seen it here as well, is sharing and making that well known to others. So they're starting to put together a board where they share their student achievement data with the kids. Oftentimes, they're the ones who don't get to hear the story of how is our school doing firsthand. It's parents, it's other community members, and it's those in education. And the kids get to see their own individual report, not necessarily their school report. But they had this really neat idea of putting that out there for kids to see. And at Grosse Pointe North, we're seeing that our ACT scores have gone up in every subject area over the last year. And we've made tremendous gains from the initiatives that we've seen in place to bring professional learning communities to our teachers and give them the latitude to do classroom action research and implement new best practices to help intervene with improving student achievement. The big highlight of the month was that I went to Washington, D.C. for the National Teacher of the Year and National State Teachers of the Year Recognition Week. Had the opportunity to visit the Smithsonian Castle and take part in the Teacher Ambassadors Program, which allowed myself and a group of other Teachers of the Year from around the country to visit the National Portrait Gallery, where we participated in a visual literacy tour of the Portrait Gallery in an exhibit called American Cool that features 100 individuals over the last 2 centuries who are designated by a rubric as being cool. And so it was really interesting to see the evolution of the word cool in use, but also how they brought historians and museum curators and sociologists together to come up with a rubric to explain what would cool mean. And so all of these folks had some sort of counterculture participation, they had a lasting impact, and they were active in their field of work for about 10 years or more, and they created a legacy that others wanted to emulate. And so we had folks from as far back as Frederick Douglass who were included, to as new as musicians and movie stars of the current era, all viewed as American cool for what they had done. But the thing that was the takeaway for me was that you can bring visual literacy back to your classroom at any level, and that reading a portrait actually requires just as much literacy as reading a complex text or reading a narrative. And that was something that I had not considered before that was very interesting. We also had the opportunity for a reception at the Vice President's residence, where we met with Dr. Jill Biden, and we were able to hear about her story going from work in K-12 education and English language arts to being a community college professor of English. And she told us that tomorrow morning we have to give a final exam, and it was a neat opportunity to honor teaching and to honor teachers and to just be able to share some of the stories from around the country. While in Washington, I went to Capitol Hill and was able to meet with Representative Candace Miller, who's a representative for the 10th District where I live and our former Secretary of State. We had a chance to talk about early childhood education, as well as pathways to post-secondary education. Much like the presentation we heard this morning, our conversation centered on making college not the only pathway and opening it up to a more broad opportunity pathway set. Additionally, I visited the U.S. Department of Education and participated in a project on teacher leadership called the Teach to Learn Initiative. We had the opportunity to meet with Arnie Duncan and some of his staff to contribute ideas from around the country to the Domestic Policy Council for Education. And we participated in the Teacher Appreciation Week activities. That they had a campaign called Thank a Teacher, and we asked everyone to write a note and share that on social media. Mine was that when I thought about the best teachers I've had in my life, both in and out of the classroom, none of them told me what to do or think, but they set me on the right path to find it out for myself. As part of the National Teacher of the Year Recognition Week in Washington, there's a gala that's held at the U.S. Institute of Peace, where both education ambassadors and the Secretary of Education honor and announce the National Teacher of the Year. So we got to hear from Arnie Duncan and some of his colleagues at the department, as well as to celebrate teachers in a much larger fashion than we normally do in our own classrooms. The highlight of the week, perhaps, was to be able to visit the White House and have an opportunity to meet with the president. And this was something that I, in my wildest dreams, would never have thought I'd have the opportunity to do in my career. And it was just a tremendous honor to be able to meet with the president and spend 30 seconds talking with him face to face before the Navy SEALs escorted me away and brought the next person in. But we had the opportunity to celebrate the National Teacher of the Year as well as the State Teachers of the Year and teaching and teachers in general, which was a really great opportunity to showcase what's going on in each state and those educators in those states and what they do for kids each and every day. I got a bunch of text messages from people at home who said, "You're on my TV right now." And they showed me pictures from watching the news or whatever it might be that was going on. But it was a really great opportunity. This is the National Teacher of the Year for 2014, Sean McComb from Maryland. And I had an opportunity to connect with him, and we're going to do some cross-state work to continue supporting teaching, leading, and learning. As soon as I got back from Washington, D.C., I got right back on the road and went up to Mackinac Island for the Delta Kappa Gamma Women Educators Leadership Summit at the Grand Hotel, and I was asked to give a presentation on STEM education in Michigan to educators from around the state and as well former educators who are now retired but still work in a capacity in education. And then over the last week, I've had a couple of unusual requests to work with kids. And I say it's unusual because I've spent most of this year supporting teachers, and to have a direct request to work with students was really exciting. And so a Catholic school near where I live invited me to come and work with their middle school students and to do a STEM presentation and a STEM activity. So we brought the kids together to work on what we call the Spaghetti Tower or the Marshmallow Challenge. And kids have to build a tower out of spaghetti noodles, 20 spaghetti noodles that are dry, a meter of tape, a meter of string, and it has to support a marshmallow on top. It's one of my favorite activities for an engineering challenge, and it really illustrates those principles of STEM that you can learn by doing, and that getting kids engaged and involved isn't just merely to get them to comply with education, but to bring them in and help them to experience it and see it for much more than it might otherwise look. Additionally, I've been able to continue my work in Grosse Pointe, working with students from kindergarten through 12th grade. This was a kindergarten classroom where we were able to use an iPad grant that they have for their classroom to support literacy and numeracy. And these kids were making tutorial videos about addition and number sentences. And then also I continued work in STEM fields at an independent school where I went and worked with K-8 teachers on doing project-based learning with Google Apps for Education and how they could bring the various technologies they have in their classrooms to support literacy, numeracy, and a variety of other subjects using projects. And continuing my work with teachers, I met with the Detroit Metro Area Physics Teachers Association, of which I'm the current president, and we brought teachers together from about 30 different schools at Troy High School where we did physics lessons, demonstrations, and lab activities, and brought them together to work on advancing their practice in STEM education. As well, I had an opportunity to work with the Utica Community Schools secondary team of science teachers on modeling instruction in the high school classrooms. And modeling instruction is a program that brings students to their learning and understanding of science, again, through doing experiments first and then debriefing the data to make analysis and to draw conclusions from there. And so this will segue into the last part of my presentation, where I'd like to talk a little bit more about the modeling instruction program that's part of the Math Science Partnership Grant that I'm coordinating with a team of educators from around the state. And what we're doing is we're going to be training 180 physics and chemistry teachers this summer and 180 physics and chemistry teachers next summer at 6 different sites around the state in chemistry and physics in 3 different workshops. We're taking a graduate course from Arizona State University in science teaching methods for physics and chemistry teachers, and we're offering it in a 3-week workshop model using the modeling method, which comes out of research from Arizona State in the late 80s, early 90s, about how students were able to ace a course in introductory physics, but not be able to answer the question of which would hit the ground first when dropped at the same height from the same time, a bowling ball or a golf ball. And what they noticed originally was that students could perform algorithms, they could follow along and parrot their teacher just well enough to do fine on their assessments, but that they didn't really come away with a conceptual understanding of the science principles or a really connected learning between the concepts. So they investigated research into cognitive science and how students learn in different teaching methods to be able to come up with a method where students learn the science through models, and developing and deploying models has proven, according to their research over the last 25 years, to be much more effective in understanding, deeper conceptual understanding, as well as longer-term retention in physics and chemistry. So we're bringing a full curriculum framework to teachers here in Michigan that they can use to fit at any school around the state, no matter how in-depth their class is. If it's introductory or AP, they can take this method and get students doing an experiment first, debriefing their data and analyzing it to develop a model, and using that model to explain and understand the different phenomena in their science areas later on. But one of the key features of the modeling instruction program is literacy and numeracy. And so they bring students together to analyze their data in a very visual way using dry erase boards, as you saw before in the presentation. So this is an excerpt from a physics experiment where they were taking a projectile and they were measuring both its vertical and horizontal motion. And they have to represent it in a variety of different ways that include algebraically, numerically, verbally, pictorially, and graphically. And so students have to not only have a commanding understanding of the principles and be able to describe conceptually what's happening, but they have to get into the quantitative and the very detailed depth of understanding that we would associate with a traditional experience in something like high school physics. So I do get this criticism often of the program to those who don't understand, and they say, oh, that's watering down physics because you're not doing as much math. Well, it isn't. What it does is it allows teachers to dial it up to whatever level of depth that their students might need so that it can make physics accessible to introductory students who might not be your typical math and math-strong students, but also can challenge the higher-end learners who might take it as an AP course. And at the same time, students then use what they develop from their experiments to solve novel problems and to be able to make their thinking visible. Requires them to have both an understanding of the basic level of the concepts, but also a more intricate level of the nuances of how it all goes together. If you're interested in this, you can learn a little bit more about what we're doing. We just sent out acceptance letters to all of our applicants this past week. I'm teaching a chemistry workshop in Southeast Michigan. We've partnered with Oakland University's College of Education, and we're going to be working with their team to help support their teacher ed program as well, so that we can create a sustainable model for supporting science teachers around Michigan in this sort of a methodology and in the way of bringing hands-on STEM education to even more teachers around the state. But I'm really excited about the opportunity. There were over 120 people who applied for 30 spots in one of our workshops, and that just really, to me, spoke to the interest level that teachers want for support in bringing STEM education to that next level in their classrooms and bringing science literacy to their students. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to any questions that you might have. But again, it's been a really exciting month, and I appreciate your time to be able to share some of that with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Oh, so much.
What a month.
John and I never get applause, you notice. Haven't picked up on that. Although this dissection thing next will get Cassandra some accolades. So
That's going to push us over.
Marty,
gonna go
come on up for our
over
legislative update. And I know Cassandra chaired a meeting yesterday that we'll have a report on. Thanks, Gary, again.
Thank you, Mike. And you got the monthly report that you can read, basically describing the budgets that have passed, both the House and Senate. They will go to conference committee where the differences will be agreed to. There is a revenue estimating conference on the 15th, which will set the dollar amount, or they will set the target amounts following that. But there, as discussed earlier today, there was language in both the House and Senate appropriations bills for K-12 that was pretty prescriptive as to our assessments. And we've been pretty clear that the direction we want to go is the direction we have been going for 3 years with our schools across Michigan to implement the new assessment system we have. There are still discussions going on. We hope the work from by the members here, as well as the work of our team and the governor's office and our legislative team will be fruitful in the fact that we'll be able to go forward with our assessment system as planned. As far as the educator evaluation legislation, the House Education Committee did report out a couple of bills to that effect. They are on the House floor. No immediate plans to move those. There is a Senate bill, Senate Bill 817, which we discussed last month. The sponsor is Senator Papageorge, to delay the educator evaluation system for a year. That bill moved from general orders, which is second reading in the Senate, general orders to third. They had a substitute this morning. We understand that the substitute continues to delay EdEvals for a year, the new system, and then the original bill had, when it does go into effect in 15-16, it would have required 50% of the evaluation be based on growth measures. The substitute moved that down to 40%. So that's on third reading now in the Senate. And talked about the budget. And we did have a meeting, kind of stay with the theme of science, as Mike just mentioned. The legislative committee meeting yesterday took up a policy that I will defer to Cassandra to discuss the nostalgic practice of animal dissection.
Very clever.
Oh, thank you, Marty. Yeah, so the let me back up just a moment. 2 months ago, this body heard from a couple of members who brought before us some concerns about dissection and some potential dissection-related policies that we might want to take a look at. This board asked the legislative committee to come up with a draft policy, so we have done that. We've created a student dissection choice policy, which is in draft form at the moment, and we're presenting to the full State Board of Education for consideration of this policy. Essentially, what the policy does is it recognizes the fact that there are students in the state of Michigan who might have moral objections to dissecting what used to be live animals, and that they should have the option of demonstrating their knowledge without being mandated or with fear of reprisal for not doing it, of dissecting animals. So what we're asking is that school districts should establish a written policy stating that there are options available for students who object to dissection activities, and that the school will permit a student who objects to demonstrate competency through an alternative method, that teachers should provide students with an alternative method if they so determine. Students should not be punished or discriminated against based on this decision to opt out of animal dissection activities, and that if they feel that they are if that is happening to them, that they have a recourse to seek assistance from their school principal. So with that, I would look for a motion.
Is that a motion for discussion?
So
by
moved.
Cassandra.
Second.
Supported by Michelle for discussion. Any further discussion? John?
Just in passing, it's great that the evaluation teacher administrative legislation is hopefully moving forward and we can see progress on the assessments. Then this is another example of a relatively small but important topic that comes to us, so I'm happy to thank the legislative committee for taking a look at it. I just wanted to add, one of the things that I think was most striking about the nostalgic nature of the policy of dissection was what was presented in terms of this is not what they do in medical schools and other places anymore, because you don't really learn much about cutting up a dead animal that's been soaked in formaldehyde, and if anything there were computer simulations and better ways to learn how to do physical anatomical manipulations if you're going to be a doctor. So this was not part of what doctors do anymore, which was, I think, one of the more compelling and substantive arguments for why this might be a nostalgic policy that we should encourage choices. So thank you for putting this together.
So there was Dan, and then Richard.
Two things, really one. We have a full agenda, so let me just go with one thing. I would love to add into the first paragraph kind of a second sentence that says that the Michigan State Board of Education also recognizes that alternative teaching methods may be more effective and less expensive. There were these two takeaways. One was like, so you make the wrong cut on the animal, like it's done. You think, ta-da, wrong, right? But with the computer, you actually get to try it over again until you get it right. So it may be more effective in some instances and less expensive, which I thought was an important takeaway too. I just want us to note that we recognize those two things as well.
Okay.
And Richard, and then
would
Eileen.
second that.
And Kathleen, and then Richard.
I believe I can support what Brother Dan has suggested. I'm wondering if the board would be agreeable to, in that first sentence, which goes on fairly long, if you would mind cutting it off with a period after available and just eliminating the rest of the sentence, and has been shown to be as effective as traditional animal dissection. For two reasons. One, it's not grammatical. Has refers back to teaching methods, so that's embarrassing on our part. And
Don't blame me, blame Word.
okay.
That's what it was a recommendation. I had have.
Okay. All right.
Maybe this computer stuff isn't all it's cracked up.
Yeah, maybe we need to go back to
manual.
dissection.
There we go. And there's a judgment here which I think is not necessarily true in all situations, all cases. I mean, you may have different objects in mind for your animal dissection. I mean, I taught kids to clean fish so you could fry them, and you really couldn't do that on the computer. So I think that I don't think that's essential to the point, and I think Dan's paraphrase, the same concern is much more is better. Just put it that way.
So just remove and has been shown to be as effective as traditional animal dissection, and then add what Dan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sound friendly enough?
Appreciate that.
Not all the formality. Eileen?
Well, on much the same note as Dr. Zeile, I would say, I just want to add my personal endorsement. Our family has, as I said to Mike, I can still smell the formaldehyde. All you have to do is to get me into school, and I know if they're using it. It's amazing. But I also want to add an endorsement of the iPad app, because my mother was happily dissecting her frog on her iPad right up almost until she died at almost 99. So lifelong learning, it works.
Wow. Okay, on that note, any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Thank you. We're good? Thank you.
Do you have any more policies to take up?
We do not. We talked about a couple of others, but it doesn't look like those bills are going to be moving anytime soon, so we did not take any positions as of yet.
Great. That means we can go to K, which, John, I think you're going to lead discussion regarding the superintendent search process.
Yes, and before getting there, I did, on this theme of science, or STEAM, I did want to associate myself with Tricia Miller, I guess. Her comments about arts as a powerful topic and discipline and set of skills that we need to equally appreciate. I've been there once before at that arts educator conference in Kalamazoo. I know they spoke about, someone spoke, Kathleen, about giving you a ride from Detroit and not knowing how important you were, and then being pleasantly surprised that they'd driven the State Board of Education president to the, it's the awards to all the students and all the workshops from all the artists, dance, music, visual, the new emerging media, multimedia, video. I mean, incredible stuff that they're doing. And I spoke at the dinner where they're honoring the teachers who are the award winners. And we're talking about, as was noted, in a time when innovation, creativity, seeing the world differently, creating beautiful things that people want to buy, all of these are where we need to have people with power. And the artists are the folks who often do all that. They're the creative edge and the innovators and the perspective that's different or powerful or challenging or changing the world. So that was a really nice reminder. I meant to mention that under my report, that that's a family of disciplines. And I was also reminded when I was talking about the science day, I was the kid who was trying to see if my science experiment it wasn't anywhere close to other people were getting on their projects, so I was waiting to see what they got. But I was also throwing the starfish that we were dissecting out the window of my second-story middle school. So because they made a really nice, plop on the vehicles down the street. So that was how we did our dissection in middle school at an unnamed location where I went to middle school. Hopefully our policies will improve that. But on this topic, we do, with what I wanted to make sure to give a nod to Mike, that he's not done yet, and there is a lot of really hard work and important work and leadership that he's providing, and so I appreciate that. But it is time that we begin, because it is a lot of work, and we need to get started and have a process by which we can identify the next great superintendent. So I really wanted to also thank the committee of Dan and Kathleen and Eileen for working together to try to outline notions of how that process might unfold. What after benefiting from their work and talking more with all of you, wanted to propose a resolution in terms of the nature and a target for this search, and just talk through a flexible but general outline of how we might proceed in this important job, an important opportunity. And again, I appreciate Mike's helpfulness in beginning to sort of color in understanding of what is the nature of this. And people are interested, and we want to build their interests both here and elsewhere, that we need high-quality, top-notch people with skills that we need to identify, that we need help from others to identify in our next superintendent, so that we can work together to attract and select a person, ideally March of next year, to carry on and help us go even further in this important work. So what you have before you is, again, a relatively simple resolution, which I hope we will support today, that basically says we are beginning this process. The committee, based on the informal committee's recommendation, will be a committee of the full Board of Education, that we want to spend some time both first getting our own sense of direction as board members together on what kind of person we're looking for, and then we spend some time listening to stakeholders in education in Michigan about the skills and attributes and experience and notions of what kind of superintendent they think is important, and that, as you see on the kind of proposed timeline, that we would do those things together first. We would begin to develop a description, criteria, informed by stakeholders, informed by our own sense of direction, with help if we need it, and or if it's available, of any organizations or search firm that we choose to enlist this fall. We would begin to open a public search and recruit attractive candidates with, I think, flexibility around timing so that we're making sure we're attracting top-quality people, continuing the search in the way that will work best to do that. There is an election in November. My hope is, and certainly my recommendation, I think everyone's agreed that we would involve, if there are changes in the board, and it sounds like there certainly will. I know Dan was going to mention today he's decided not to seek re-election. So that, I think, guarantees at least one change, which I won't belabor my own desire. I'd love to have Dan continue on this board, but I also want him to do whatever he wants to do that's most significant in making a difference for Michigan, Detroit, and education. So I respect any decision Dan's make. I will say, as an aside, I think I would like Dan, particularly because he's not running, but that he might help facilitate some of the early discussions that I hope will start at our retreat about what are we looking for, what is some of our collective discussion together, and help kind of lead the process a bit informally as we get going. So I appreciate Dan's willingness to do that. But that we'd involve any new elected people immediately, and we hopefully would continue to involve the folks who might not be on the board. But obviously, we'd be working through a process over the winter and into early next year where we'd be trying to identify a pool of quality candidates, narrow that pool, check them out, and make a decision with the voting members of the state board at the time being the ones making that decision. But I hope informed by predecessors and successors throughout. So that's my recommendation for the process. And I certainly, as I said, I would like us to pass a resolution today that formally begins with this target for our work, and view as flexible the set of activities. And as I said, I would like, I think, to begin at our retreat to spend a bit of time working together on a little more detail on what we're looking for, general orientation, and the whole process itself would be my recommendation to get started. So, but I'm eager to have discussion about the process now and continue to work together. I think as we work together, all of us, it will send a powerful message that we can and will continue to work together, irrespective of any changes that may occur, and that will be reassuring and encouraging to potential candidates and people that we might employ to carry this work further.
Dan, please.
So, yes, let me personally confirm that I've decided not to run for election, and we'll have ample time to, I'll have ample time to tell you guys how much I love you as we get to as we near the end of that term. I will say that the committee of Kathy and Eileen and myself, the one place we were not able to agree really was on a timeline for how this should work. Otherwise, this resolution is completely consistent with the unanimous recommendations out of the committee. As it pertains to the timeline, we really had three different ideas, and just to be completely transparent, the timeline that John is suggesting here is very consistent with what I had wanted to see happen. I think it recognizes the practicalities of an election year, and recognizes the significance and importance of the task before us. So I'm completely supportive of this resolution and would want us to see it, want to see us pass it.
Other discussion.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Let me ask for that.
I'll move approval of the resolution itself.
And I'll support.
Supported by Dan. So now further discussion.
It doesn't include the...
I think what the spirit, the intent of the resolution is to start the process, form the search committee, set a target date for the hire, and to reassure folks that there's input. And to note, this is a outline of steps in the road, which I would view as changeable as we proceed, but a beginning outline that executes the intent of the resolution. So I'm asking for the resolution to be approved today, and I would welcome discussion on the steps in the road and modification to them as we proceed, but also I don't want to get held hostage to exact agreement on the steps, because the steps, I think, can evolve and change.
further comments or questions? Richard, please, then Eileen.
Well, I think this is a very fair outline, and I think gives us a plan. And if it's obviously desirable to the board, we can adjust the plan, but you got to have a plan to begin with, and I think it makes sense.
Eileen, please.
I'm personally hoping that in February, where it says, or finalist identification, a time frame has lagged, things will be lagging because I'll be gone for 2 weeks in February on a family reunion.
I just have a
Michelle?
question. So we're not anticipating like any failed search or that we might need more
Candidates?
time at the end
As I
to
was
reconsider?
not only talking with all of you, but just looking at steps in the road.
Right.
This is itself a very aggressive timetable,
Yeah.
meaning some months to develop ourselves, some orientation of what we're looking for, some months to listen to stakeholders and develop a more fulsome job description criteria and sort of work program for a search. Some months, a couple, even under this timetable, which is as proposed, 10 months to conduct a formal search. And it acknowledges that if late the next fall, after a couple months, assuming we execute this timetable generally, we don't feel like we've got a pool of candidates that include high-quality people, that we always should be thinking about opening, leaving it open for a month. That's what the reference to a lag month. If we very ambitiously to get to December with finalists, which would be the most ambitious sort of version of this, we're closing down a pool by the end of the year. That would be great in my view, but it does. I think I just want to acknowledge very honestly, if we don't feel in that pool, we've got a pool of people that are going to deliver what we want. We might consider leaving the process open for a month, and we could consider leaving it open for more months if we never get there, or shutting it down or starting over. I mean, I'm trying to help us acknowledge that we want to run a process that we do get the results that we're looking for. And we need to have some flexibility in our expectation in order to do that, while even as written down, the steps in this process are very ambitious in their time frame.
Kathleen? I'm sorry, Michelle.
I said I was hoping that we would make the decision by the end of the year while Dan and Cassandra would be on the board. So there might be.
Yeah.
I'm running again. You were
I am,
running again?
yes.
But Dan will be gone, and I was hoping we could make the decision while he was on the board. But I recognize that John's point about working together and that, making sure that the candidates know that we can work and do work well together regardless of who's on the board. So I can buy that, but my original preference was to do it by the end of December.
Eileen, please.
Well, my original preference was to do it while Dan and Cassandra are on the board. So, we're on the same page because what I brought up, and I thought it was answered when we've been talking about this, is the possibility that if Dan wanted to continue on in the discussions, that was possible. Wasn't the consensus that we could include whoever we wanted, not in the vote, but in the discussion process?
Well, absolutely, that's what I was suggesting. I would strongly encourage this board, respecting just the reality that whoever is formally on the Board of Education are the voting members.
Correct.
We have two ex officio. We have ex officio members who need to be full participants as well. The chairman of the board, not in this decision-making process, in the governor's office, in the discussion process. I would hope that we would include, upon new members elected, if there are, and there likely be one, them in whatever meetings we're having about this process immediately. In December,
Right.
and even January, if we meet before the meeting that they're invested, and that we be open to Dan and/or, God forbid, Cassandra, if she's not reelected, being able to be in the discussions that get us to the choice, ideally in January or February and March. But I'm just acknowledging that they won't have a vote at that time. So
But
I
it's a
would
little
hope this
indelicate to
board.
discuss Cassandra, so.
I will not have a vote.
It's delicate.
But we
it's
would
not
benefit
fine to
from it.
discuss
Use me as
it,
an
but-
example.
You know,
Example.
yeah. So
I can be the example.
let me just say, assuming that Dan and I are both not on the board the next time around, my only concern with the way this is laid out is then you have two brand-new people coming in, and literally within 30 days, actually within days of them being an actual board member, but 30 days, give or take, having to get completely up to speed with all these different candidates and what it is the board does and wants, and that's my only concern is now you've got this, you've got 6 experienced board members and 2 non-experienced board members, and in which case your timeline may completely go off the chart because you're expecting a lot from 2 brand-new board members, if that's the case.
And that we have to anticipate that anything could happen with 2 new board members. I will note, though, we are going to need to work together, as we always have, on a bipartisan basis before, during, and after this election. I mean, the change in complexion of the board could range from it remains 6-2 Democratic to it's 4-4 Democrat, Republican, which all of the scenarios demand that we continue to work together. So we're going to have to signal that throughout the process. And I would very much, and what I'm certainly encouraging, and what I think this timetable does, if people support it in its sort of contours, is it gets this board, which I know can work together, 3/4 of the way home, and really defining what we're looking for and setting the wheels in motion for the nature of the candidates we're trying to attracting candidates that are the final pool towards the end of the year. And I would love this board to make this decision. I just am respecting the fact that there is an election. It's going to change the complexion of the board a bit. We have to allow that reality to be factored in so that the new board members are participants in the decision-making and have the opportunity to participate fully.
Can I respond?
Just took a drink. Yes, of course you can.
I don't think anyone can stop.
I agree. I think that even if you have a 4-4 split board, I think you'll still all be able to work together. I don't think that's the issue. I think the problem is there's a huge learning curve that comes with joining this board. It takes a good year to even understand all of the lingo and the letters and what they correlate to. I mean, it's a huge learning curve. So, Folsom, thank you. So I guess what I'm just saying is you might want to move January up to December and maybe have at least like 3 or 4 finalists chosen so that you're not repeating the process come January 1st because you have 2 new board members. That's all I'm saying.
And I certainly...
And that's exactly what I was going to say, because you're right. The other 2 people, quote unquote, will have a lot to learn. You don't know the people or the process or this board or many things when you come in. I'm just learning. I've just been here 1 year and I'm still learning. So Cassandra is very right. How can these 2 other people come in and select the vote for the superintendent when they've just been here a few days? So the timeline, I believe, has to be changed if we want this board to make the decision then.
Eileen, please.
Well, there are a couple of points that we discussed back and forth during the planning process for this, and we've heard from outsiders that it's extremely unlikely we'll have a good pool until after the election. Most people, especially with what's going on right now with SBAC and educator evaluation, and people are watching Michigan, so they'll have a sense of whether they want to apply. But to not know whether the board is going to be 6-2 or 4-4, and to not know whether we're having a Republican or a Democratic governor, is a lot. It's a very Mike, is this a political job?
Well,
With a big
I mean, yeah,
So
most of the time not, but
But
there's
it
that
is right
aspect
now.
like right now.
Right, and we will not be through that because we're going to be giving some assessment, unknown, totally unknown right now, in next winter, March, April window. The window will be,
We've got it at eight weeks.
okay, so 2 months, March, April, May, no, February, March, April. Someplace in there.
March, April.
Yep.
I'm sorry, for what?
The window for the new assessment, which I don't know if we've conveyed to you quite how dramatically things are working right now in the legislature, but it could be that in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be at high risk in US DOE terms. It could be that we'll be going back to AYP for the fall. It's very hard to know right now whether US DOE is going to say everything that happened in Michigan is just fine, here's your waiver, or whether the systems are going to be upside down in a very quick time. If they're upside down, trying to plan that somebody will apply for this job and be through a vetting process in the month around the election, I think is unrealistic. And we've talked this through. The other problem, I think, Dan, was the money for a search firm. John, I know you've talked to Craig, and the budget starts October 1st. So there's some sequencing issues that tend to push us toward bringing those new people on board, and depending upon what gets them elected. I know at least 2 Republican candidates are seasoned board members. I don't know the other 2 people. I don't know what has emerged for the Democratic side. I don't know whether you already have people who are likely to be walk on board and be able to get there. The new board has to choose the new superintendent, though, because they're going to be living with that person, and they have to be part of it. To try and determine the candidates beforehand doesn't give them that choice. In fact, going through the applications will season them in a way that nothing else can. So while I appreciate the push for collegiality, I appreciate that we've learned to work together as a group, and that getting that hire done before the end of the year or pre-selecting the possible candidates would be desirable for this board. It's the board in the next 2 years, 4 years, 6 years that has to be able to work with that person constructively and develop the connections to that person in the search process that will work for everybody in the future.
You know, when Dan asked me or interviewed me with the committee a little bit about different things, which I appreciated, by the way, and appreciated kind of the opportunity, you know, did I see myself involved? Was the question, no, you know, if there's too much ownership, it would be hard. It wouldn't be a good thing to do. I don't think it's ever a good thing for a predecessor to try to be involved. What I did agree to, though, was when asked, and I think there's a little bit of indirectly being asked right now, how things might look from a candidate's point of view, that I would weigh in. And there's pros and cons, but from a candidate's point of view, I would say one thing is, yes, the governor's election. I've worked through 2 administrations reasonably successfully. But that is an issue for applicants. And the other issue is, I mean, I don't want to remind folks of this, but I was a 5-3 vote. And if you're a 5-3 vote with a board that's changing, I'm not anticipating that would happen, but it has happened. You know, so there's the candidate issue about what's my sense of security with that. So I think for a pool of candidates, it's something to consider. It doesn't mean to weigh one way or the other. It's just an issue.
Just on a couple of these issues, I do think we'll attract high-quality people to the degree we show and do work together throughout the process. I think we are not going to be hostage to whether there's a search firm or money or not. We're going to continue, and I would hope to move the process. I think as we work together, we likely will get some help if we need it, but we're not going to be held hostage to that. And I do want us to execute, you know, a timeline that does stay as close to this as we agree to do. I mean, Cassandra, if this time, even just these steps, these informal guide steps, if we work them through, we close the search together at the end of the year, I mean, in December, and we're looking at a pool of finalists. That's about as far, I think, as we could get. And if we can agree to get there by working together, I'd say let's take this up again in terms of the exact timetable that we're trying to hit. Not the timetable I want support for today is that we start now and we set a target of ending March 15th. period. So that's what I want support for. We can try to fine-tune when we're trying to close the pool and other things, but I also think some of that is going to be a function of how we proceed together, and in the steps on the road, we're going to have to be somewhat flexible and acknowledge not the political realities, but just the realities of, are we ready to do this, are we ready to do this as we go. But and I do think hitting the most ambitious version of this, where this board is in essence defining the pool and even the pool of high-quality people, and respecting the fact that there is an election change and that the people, as Eileen said, who are going to be living with the board are involved in the final decision-making, is what I think this scenario can help us to do.
Yes, sir.
Now that I'm officially a lame duck, let me offer the first of many comments that will fall upon deaf ears. Hopefully
Tell me.
not.
I have
Hopefully
one.
not.
I have one deaf ear, but I got the other one.
So there are challenges with every timeline we could possibly settle on,
Yes.
right?
Right.
There really are. Like, there's no perfect timeline here. I think what's two thoughts. One is that this proposed timeline is, I think, a really reasonable compromise between the various alternatives available. One. And so I would encourage folks to vote in support of it in the spirit of compromising between the various timelines and processes that we could undergo, which I think none of which would actually get majority support in the end. I think we'd end up back at zero if we were to throw out everything that everybody wanted. Secondly, this timeline offers pretty significant flexibility. As John said, it's start now with the process that does need to get started if we're going to do a good job, and look to try and put a capstone on it in March. If the practicality of an election year slows the process down, it slows it down.
Yeah.
If somehow or another it speeds up, it speeds up. This offers us kind of the opportunity to live with whatever comes, and I think that may be the most important thing that this group, given how well we work together, could ask for.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was speaking out of turn.
No, you're up.
The only thing that I would say to that is that December is an important month. As Cassandra just voiced, and Lupe too, they're both advocates of this group choosing the finalists. I personally think that's a disaster. And I think it's unsettling for two reasons. One is, it's not personal, it's just from the timing in the pool. What worries me is that, and Mike, if you saw what's going on in Michigan, would this be someplace that you jump right in to apply for in the beginning of November before the election?
I don't think I'd jump in at any date.
Right, yes, you brought that up.
Dangerous question to ask.
Your colleagues at CCSSO, I mean, is this, in other words, this is a state that has many challenges. It's not, and Indiana does, and South Carolina does.
They're all
So the more not progressive, the more thoughtful the state about education, the more conflict there's going to be right now. So all of these jobs are going to be challenging. People will know that. But we would also be unsettled. So I'm very concerned that we not say that we would rush this process to have candidates by November, because then we'll be committing ourselves potentially to a second pool, which will start running in to a later time.
And no one is saying that.
Yeah.
No one is saying that.
Well, I want to make sure that we have enough consensus on that moving forward, that having this speed up before December is not a desirable thing. If it's sped up in January or February and we found that we had the right candidate, what I don't think we should be doing is identifying a finalist before December 31st as a group.
A finalist.
No, 4 finalists.
Right.
No finalist pool. I think that's the one flaw in this,
Well,
because that is a selection saying we will be deciding. Essentially, we'll be cutting out other applicants. This group would be cutting out other applicants before the board, if it changes, comes into effect on January 1st.
So what it says in writing is that this group could decide when we got there. And I think your concern is well noted, right? And I'm sure you'll raise it eloquently many times between now and then. if and when we get there. I would just trust this group to be able to work together when that time comes. Let's see what we have. You may love the pool of Canton now. May not be likely to happen in the way you're seeing things right now, but it may be that we get there and you love the pool of finalists. And you say, yes, absolutely, by all means, let's close it. So I just think that it offers us the flexibility that we need, and if we trust ourselves to continue to work together effectively, I think that we'll be happy with the process in the end.
I think that's right, and then the decision would be made by the new board.
Yes. The final
But
decision.
that would be fine. They'd have a role, and we would have had a role. And it may only be one new board member.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Richard.
Oh, is it somebody else before me?
Yeah, I was just in response to Eileen's concerns. It's the responsible of every representative body to try to come up or anticipate policies or recommendations that the larger body will accept, and that will be our responsibility in December. We'll know what the new board is going to be, and we will have to anticipate something that will be acceptable to the new board. So I think we can, and if the new board doesn't like our recommendations, then they'll vote to redo them. And
right.
So I think I think as it stands, I think we're okay. Yeah.
And I want to clarify, I made kind of a flippant comment that this is really a great opportunity for someone. I mean, I've enjoyed it. I feel privileged to have been selected, and the 5-3 became an 8-0 a year or two later, and we've worked really well together. This position, you can really have a positive impact on kids in this state. So I don't want to underestimate at all that you'll get quality candidates.
This is a plum state, actually.
Yeah.
And
great board.
And one, yes, yeah. I just, but one other, if I, okay, I guess I can.
I had a question.
As usual, I can't.
Major discussion.
Timeline.
Well, that's true. Every state has major discussion.
I just had a question I wanted to ask about the timeline.
Sure.
Might sound silly. So there would not be a job description? It would take us, let's see, May, June, July, August, September, 4 months to come up with a job description?
If we follow this outline, we would be spending the summer essentially getting input, preparing our own sense of direction, but approving, ideally in September, a formal job description process for search that we want to see executed, criteria, et cetera. So in September.
Okay.
I'd like to see us do that by August.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm saying all of these are things we can fine tune.
You have to move it faster. That's too slow.
And if Lupe, please.
I want to call the
And then Mike.
question.
You want to call? Okay.
Can I just and I appreciate that, Lupe, so let's call the question. Let me just add one
Second
point to.
before I get hit in the shoulder.
To Richard's,
I think
Richard's comment
No,
to
no, you
Eileen,
can't.
I appreciate
You
that.
can't.
no, she's
I called
correcting
the
you.
question and he seconded it.
Okay.
Unless you vote it down, then you can
No.
go ahead.
Okay, the question's been called. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Abstain.
Abstain.
That cuts
That was
off
on the calling the
debate.
question,
Now
right?
you got to vote on
Oh,
the
I'm
main-
sorry.
That was on the calling the question.
Never mind, I'm a yes.
Now you go to the motion. Yes.
Okay, now I need to call the main question that had
Yes.
called off debate.
Right.
Thank you for that
Right.
reminder. So now it's the actual question of this resolution with the
Right,
spirit
right,
behind this
right.
timeline. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Abstain.
Abstain now. Okay, and John, and then Mike.
Well, thank you. I think it's very important to work together. I think to the degree we, as Dan articulated, to Eileen's concerns and Cassandra's concerns, I think validated by Richard, we can adapt and change and trust each other to work together. If we're working together in defining when, how, and what we're looking for, we're going to have no problems, and we will be reassuring to anybody who's elected. As I think at one time Richard was newly elected to the board, I think he did not know what it would be like to be a rather different perspective board member, and was reassured, I believe, that
Very much.
he was made part of the board and his voice was heard, and in return, I think Richard has been a thoughtful and helpful and even finding a lot of common ground board member. So I anticipate the same will happen with any changes to the board if we model the kind of spirit, behavior, and working together, not compromising our ideas, our ideologies, or principles, but they're going to be eager to, I think, be supportive of good directions, even good set of candidates that we can get to, which I trust this board substantively to get to a good set of candidates. And I hope that as that happens, people are going to be saying, yeah, that's not an apple cart. I want a rock. I want to be part of that party. So that's the best hope. Anything can happen. Elections, I acknowledge that. We have to respect the fact there is an election, but we can, this is a great state with great education, and we need to attract and support a leader who's going to help us move ahead. And so it's a wonderful job and a lot to do, and I appreciate everybody working together on it.
A couple of things, if I may. You'll get to do this not long after if you look at the averages. Even though I'll have been 10 years by then, the average is 2.3 years. So you'll be back at this not long after.
Yeah.
And then a little self-serving, but one reason that date seemed right when we talked about it for a number of reasons, but this will give the outgoing superintendent the chance, the opportunity to do some of the dirty work before a new superintendent comes in and doesn't have to do it in July 1. There's going to be some dirty work that has to be done during that time, especially with the way assessments are going and things like that. And again, I would obviously respect and see that, glad that since this resolution got passed, I'll say this, that the earlier a selection would make it tough for that person not to weigh in on the dirty work that's being done. I'm saying that right. There's no way they're not going to be asking that person, well, what would you have? And there's just some stuff that's going to be tough decisions that I don't think you want to start out with. So that might be helpful. And then I've said this to the committee there, but I think, I've recommended this to every board I've left and moved on to something else. You need to find someone with different strengths than I had, because stuff kind of goes up and down, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to get really strong people, but whenever you can get someone that also has some strengths that your predecessor didn't have, that really evens things out over time. So you're going to have lots of options, good options. Okay, well, we got through that. Okay, we're going to L, and thank you so much for your patience, Robert Miller and everyone else. Sorry, this is actually very late for our board meetings.
Yeah.
But we appreciate your patience today, and we're going to go right to item L. And I know that Leah's coming up with Joseph, and I think with Sarah. Maybe, maybe not. I guess, no, if Leah got back from wherever you are. So why don't you have a step in? Let me just transition us here to say, I think there's, I know Robert Miller's up first. I think Creative Studies folks are also here, so thank you for joining us today, and you're up next. This was decided at agenda planning to just get them both on the agenda this way, and just remember the State Board appointed a committee of scholars all the way back to 2005 to review an application for Robert Miller for full approval. The committee of scholars examined and responded to application materials, reviewed Miller's responses to the first application review, conducted an on-site visit, prepared a detailed report of their findings, and the Committee of Scholars recommends that Miller College be granted approval. It's based on that I also recommend that they be given approval. And to give you some context for that, both Lee and Joseph are with us today, and many guests.
We're still working on getting this on the technology.
And Dr. Walters, if you and your team could just be acknowledged for a moment. Thank you for your patience today, and President Walters and the rest of the team for being here. So.
There we go.
Okay. So, thank you, Superintendent Flanagan. We're very happy to be here to bring Robert Miller. We're very happy to be able to bring Robert Miller College before you for approval today. And again, as Mike said, this was agreed in agenda planning that we would bring this not just for discussion, but also for approval today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Leah.
Sure.
This is, if you remember last month's presentation with College of Creative Studies, it's just a very short informational presentation, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask questions of either us or the rest of the team from Robert B. Miller that are here. So we just want to introduce you a little bit to the college. Miller College is a private nonprofit institution. They're degree granting. They're located in Battle Creek, Michigan, on the campus of Kellogg Community College. They were founded in 2005. They were developed to address a need expressed by the business and education communities in Calhoun for an affordable local institution of higher learning. It was intended that residents of Battle Creek could complete their bachelor's degrees and receive continuing education, professional development, and career retraining. The college is designed for any junior or senior level student. They must attend classes at convenient times and locations. Well, they not must, it says must, but they do attend classes at convenient times and locations intended not to conflict with family and work responsibilities. The location on KCC campus and the agreement that the college maintains affords Miller students the use of community college facilities while they're attending Miller. Those facilities include things like the library, technology, support services, and the physical spaces at KCC. It's a unique collaborative agreement between a public community college and a degree-granting college in Michigan. Miller College's core values include student learning, critical thinking, oral and written communication skills, and an understanding of a globally oriented world. The college's mission is to graduate students who exhibit a high level of competence in their area of study and demonstrate service to their community. The college meets the educational needs of a diverse student population by allowing students to complete their educational programs in a variety of learning formats. The School of Education also has strong collaborative relationships with Lakeview, Harper Creek, and Battle Creek schools, as well as KCC, which we mentioned. The relationship allows for extensive field experiences. One of the unique components about Miller is that the majority of their education courses, including the methods course taught on the elementary school campus, include methodology field experience. Miller has served as a host site for a series of Battle Creek schools and Calhoun ISD professional development sessions to which teacher candidates have been invited. It allows pre-service teachers the opportunity to learn about best practices promoted by the district's instructional coaches and master teachers and professional learning communities. Miller College takes a strong practitioner-based approach to teacher education. All faculty members are former or current classroom teachers with over a century of combined experience in elementary and secondary schools. So to remind you of the timeline, there are 3 stages in the process: preliminary, probationary, and full. Miller is currently operating as probationary, and they are seeking full approval today from you. The State Board of Ed granted the preliminary approval in July 2004. They had a collaborative agreement with Aquinas College, who served as their mentor institution. In 2009, Miller was allowed to operate independently from Aquinas when they moved to their probationary status. The Committee of Scholars included Dr. Kathleen Jacobson from CMU, Dr. James Jeffrey from Andrews University, who also served as the chairperson, Dr. John Poster of U of M Dearborn, Dr. Mark Seals from Alma, and Dr. Sherry Wagenlander, who is principal at Mott Middle School. The Committee of Scholars has agreed that Miller has met the application requirements. Miller has progressed well since the State Board of Ed granted probationary status as an EPI, and they've met all of their requirements. Their MTTC performance has ranged from good to excellent in the last 3-year reporting intervals. They have achieved either satisfactory to exemplary status on their EPI performance scores for 2012 and 2013. The institution utilizes assessment data for continuous program improvement, which is very important when we're reviewing programs. So with that, Mike would recommend that the State Board recommend Robert B. Miller College
for full approval as an educator preparation unit. And any questions that you may have.
See, this isn't an overnight process, but it's one that we feel is important to go through. Yes, ma'am.
Do you need a motion?
That would be good.
I so move.
Moved by Lupe, supported by John. Further discussion?
I wasn't here when it was first approved. I'm just wondering, in general, it seems like the demand for teacher education programs is going down. I'm not sure what it's like at Western. Do you foresee that this might run into some competition or be detrimental to supporting a teacher school at other public institutions that would siphon?
Well, this institution has been recommending candidates either through Aquinas or independent since 2005. So they're pretty established as far as the existing teacher population.
Right.
That's definitely something we need to discuss when we bring back information about the moratorium that's in existence. There are only a couple of institutions that entered into the process before the moratorium, and Miller is one of them.
Michelle, that was just before your time where we did
Yeah.
enter a moratorium for that very reason. There were some others looking to be in the pipeline, but the board cut it off.
Okay.
Appropriately.
Okay.
That's a good question, because we had asked that question before.
Right.
Thanks.
Richard and then Dan.
I understood you to say they only offer junior and senior level courses, so the undergraduate work's done at the community college or transferred in? Okay. And do they have bachelor's programs for other than teaching?
I don't know that.
Yes, they do. Sure they do.
Yes, we do. It's in nursing.
Would you like to join us, sir? Please. This is President Walters. Please, you're welcome to.
We have it in nursing, School of Business, and Arts and Sciences as well.
About how many students altogether?
Altogether, per semester, we average around 350 students.
And how many of those are teacher preparation students?
We have approximately, is it under 60? Third?
About a third of those? Okay, thank you. Very good.
Any other discussion? Thank you for questions. Thank you, sir. Okay, Lupe?
Just one question. You, as a superintendent, you're recommending this status?
Yes.
Can you give us one reason?
Well, I trust the process, and the committee of scholars, they really do work. And then our own folks on the second floor, we've discussed this one in particular, but it's largely because the experts in our department here, as well as the scholars, I think, have really done due diligence. And then the school itself has really performed well.
Thank you.
So, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Well, thank you. Congratulations. Thanks for your patience today. The next up, and we have guests with us also today who've been very patient, so thank you. But we had a little preview of this last month. This is the approval for the College for Creative Studies as an educator prep institution with probationary approval. And I'll go right back to Joseph and Leah again.
Yes, this one did come last month. So it ended up being a little different than the previous one where we spread it across 2 months. You did see a fine presentation, and people appeared to be very happy with where things had been going with the College for Creative Studies. And so we're not planning to present an additional presentation today, but simply recommend that the State Board grant probationary approval to the College for Creative Studies as an educator preparation institution for 3 years, as noted in the State Board item.
I so move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported.
Chair.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to College for Creative Studies.
Michelle, do we really have discussion of NASB people?
Well, just going to say that the nominations for officers for the National organization are out. If anyone is considering it, you can see the attachments. There's also nominations for awards, and they're all attached. The date they're due back is June 3rd. So I don't know if anyone wanted to consider that or make any nominations, but it's there if you are interested. There's no bylaw changes this year, as there was last year. Do you have questions, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Both of you have been NASB delegates. Are you interested in running for one of the offices?
I was going to ask that of Richard, too.
Yeah.
I'd be open. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's at the regional, I think it's the regional one that requires you to be a...
Central regional, yeah.
Yes, requires you to have been a...
Delegate?
Task force. There's something there that requires you to have been a task force leader, which you are now.
You've been.
No, I
Served
think in
on-
order to be
on,
president,
yeah.
you have to have been a member.
We
of the
did that.
board of
You're talking
directors.
about the roll thing?
Which board of
I
directors
thought
you
that-
have to
It was
be.
The roll
something else.
one?
I know, I
That you
saw
just
something
signed
else
up
about
for?
task force, but maybe.
Well, I
maybe-
just, and I served on learning one last year, so.
Yeah, no, that'd be,
Would you want to run for area
Yeah.
representative? I think that was the...
Yeah,
area
that's,
director?
yeah, that
That'd
would
be
be
great.
fine.
So what's the process?
so is the,
We have to nominate him, I know that.
oh, I'm
Right
supposed to
now,
know
or
this?
when, or by paper?
It's been seconded before the next board
I
meeting,
know,
so
it's-
I think we would have to.
The heart goes out to you.
Okay, and
Cover
then
ourselves. Can we
do
nominate Richard for
shall be
area
a nominee.
director? I nominate Richard Ziley for NASB, area director of whatever the right area is that he should be directing.
Moved by John, supported by Eileen. Any further discussion? It's the nomination of Richard, moved, supported. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Michelle?
Get ready
What?
to campaign.
Do you want to do
Well,
something?
thank you.
Oh, I think I'm doing enough.
Congratulations.
Anybody else want to be something?
Yeah.
It is, if I may comment on those awards, we've had a great record the last couple of years
Yes,
with
we have.
Yeah.
nominating people, so come up with some more ideas as to who for these various awards. so.
Well, can we nominate Dan, since he's leaving the board?
Dale Kildee. Dale Kildee, Mike Flanagan. who else?
Jennifer Granholm, I think,
Jennifer
was the one
Granholm.
year.
Hey, Vicky Markowitz.
Deb Ball comes to mind, just
Yeah,
given her role
certainly
around,
does.
I mean,
She did a lot of
Yeah.
work for us.
I can
No,
support
think
that.
would
I don't know if
support
there's an
her.
appropriate award, but her name pops to mind as somebody who's given a lot of time and energy to.
Distinguished Service Award.
Yeah.
I think that would
I
be
don't
appropriate.
remember what they all were, the public policy person.
I miss you.
I can do it.
I not think of her name.
It's the Distinguished Service Award.
Yeah. Who's done
Friend of
did the
Education.
curriculum for Henry Ford
The other one.
Academy, and who's
It is
working
the-
downtown.
Yeah, well, let's take a
Policy
name.
leader of the
Deb Ball,
year.
certainly.
Yeah, policy leader.
I'm sure we can come up with some names.
Just a second. I just can't think of her name, but just a minute here. Give me a second here. MSU, help me out.
What are you talking about?
Myron?
An award, sorry.
Equal time.
Send it in, we've got to move on.
Carol, you're not thinking of Carol Ames, are you?
Got a
The
Rose
former-
Bowl, Wendy
No,
Winslow.
no, I mean, she's
Okay.
current. She
Milk that
put
baby.
together the curriculum for Henry Ford Academy, Barbara Markle.
Oh, Barbara Markle?
Yep.
She deserves some sort of distinguished service award. She's still serving.
Well,
I don't know
turn
if
all
she's
the
getting
names
close
in
to her
to Michelle.
retirement.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do we have to
Turn
vote?
the names into Michelle, or everybody you want to nominate.
Well, that's right. Does
I
this
don't know.
require,
There's a packet that
It's,
Give them the
filled out. I'd
packet,
say Mary.
Michelle.
I think you have in the past, you voted on someone you wanted to
Described it.
nominate.
That's true, they-
The appropriate thing is for.
Yeah, I
Deb
think
Ball.
the board has to nominate.
right.
She hasn't
But she doesn't
served.
remember the name, how could she nominate?
Yeah, no, she hasn't served as a NASB person, which is, it says it's not a requirement for the nomination. But service award designees, it's extra consideration, but Barbara fits all the rest of the requirements.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Well, she could do the
Nominate her for distinguished service or whatever. the
friend
appropriate-
of.
Distinguished or friend
So
of?
Can we
does it-
nominate two people for the same award?
I think so,
Then let's do it.
yeah.
Maybe you think Deb Ball
who's
and
the other one?
Barbara Markle?
I'd like to nominate somebody from my side of the state.
Yeah,
All right, you gotta think about it.
Hispanic and African
been really
American,
outstanding
something
this year.
different.
Are there any people on your side of the state? I thought that was
Hey.
unsettled territory. Oh, we've seen more
Blank
people
space.
lately.
Go west, young man.
John, the last time we nominated 2 people.
I can think of a few.
Yeah.
Let's choose last time.
Can we
Mertz
nominate
is
them for
reminding.
different things then?
Mertz is reminding us that when you nominated
Policy leaders?
Friend of
lost
education.
control
We
here.
have diversity.
Mertz reminds us that when you nominated
Applicants,
two
right.
last time, they made you choose. So
Is there a
Distinguished
policy
service.
leadership thing? Because that's where
There's a
Deb Ball belongs.
policy.
I mean,
Yeah.
designing the teacher
That's true.
evaluation
It's a
system that the
policy
teachers support is a signature contribution to the nation.
So one for one
It's a
and one for
policy.
the other.
And one for Friend of Education, Barbara Markle or whatever.
So John, you want to
Well-
put that in
Yeah.
motion? That
Mhm.
would be Deb Ball for
Policy.
Policy. making-
policy,
Leadership, yeah.
Barb Markle for,
What is it?
Distinguished
There's
service.
Friend of Education, and there is.
Distinguished service.
Distinguished service.
And there's a policy.
I think distinguished
Yeah.
service, because
Board
she's an
members.
educator.
yeah.
Okay.
So
State board members.
any further, John
Yeah, that's my
moved.
motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is this for
Second
Deb Ball?
For Richard, just for
And
both.
Deb Ball for policy leadership, Barbara Markle for distinguished service to
Well, I think
education.
the Distinguished Service Award is for state board members.
Oh, let me double
Oh, I
check.
think
No,
think.
no, it
No?
says that you don't have to be.
Oh, I thought you.
Yeah, it says, well, not a requirement for nomination, service on a NASB committee, study group, or board of directors will be a consideration. So
Is
for
that for
Deborah Ball,
distinguished or-
though, I think they would be choosing, she
I
couldn't
think-
have ever been.
I think we're
NASB.
mixing, if I may, we're mixing these up. The policy one, Deb Ball, I think is what you're reading from.
Distinguished Service Award.
Distinguished service, it's a consideration, but not a requirement that you have served on a state board or an ASB committee.
Okay.
So I think we can nominate Barbara Markle, although her chances may be
Or we could
reduced.
do it for Friend of Education.
Or we can do it for Friend of
What's
Education.
the friend
for Barbara.
intended for?
Friend is have exhibited personal and professional dedication to improving American education through specific state and or national achievements of singular merit within the past 3 years, demonstrated successful collaboration with other individuals, organizations, or agencies, and work consistently to bring greater benefit to the educational experience of all students.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that is for educators.
Friend of
Friend of
education.
Education.
For Markle.
So offer a friendly amendment to change the Barbara Markle nomination to Friend of Education.
Okay. It'll increase chances, I think. So, did I have a second for that?
Second.
Second.
I don't know.
Any further discussion?
One more, there's a policy leader of the year award.
Yeah, that's
Is that
Deb
really where
Ball.
Deborah Ball
That's
should
Deb
go?
Ball,
yes.
Okay, for sure, all right, great, got it,
That's
sorry,
what we
sorry,
nominated.
sorry.
So
I'm
let me
just busy
repeat
reading, ignoring all
What I think the
reality.
motion was, policy would be Deb Ball, friend would be Barb Markle.
And no
Then-
Distinguished Service Award nominee. Yep, got it.
So that's a motion, supported. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Great, thank you. Good ideas. Consent agenda.
Really only one item, and it's the,
I move
Right.
approval of the consent agenda with the flagging the importance and thanking everybody for advancing the policy on student suspensions and expulsions. It's important.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to note the importance of this item and thanking everybody for supporting the evolved and student suspension and expulsion policy, which is what is very important.
Moved by John, supported by Kathleen.
Yeah.
There's no discussion. Sorry. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Great.
I just wanted to say that I'm on the NASB committee for public education people. And one of the positions I just got this stuff. One of the positions they're proposing is, student discipline policy. So I got in touch with Kyle as soon as I got it, and sent it to him. And that had the materials from other states and cities and how they're implementing it at local districts. But I thought we should send them our new policy that we're just passing.
Okay.
But they're interested in the same thing. They had given us a grant to do this, so this was.
We've been working closely with them,
Right.
so now that it's a pass, we'll make sure we get that to them, and then we have some work we'll be doing on developing the resources for schools to implement.
Excellent. Okay. Any further comments? Next meeting,
Is this comments for everybody?
anyone?
I'll talk to you. I mean, I had a question on this Jackson.
No, just comments, not questions.
Let me rephrase that. I have a comment about this Jackson plan. When I opened it up, it talked about, I was trying to, modifications of the approved plan for the delivery of special education. When I looked at what was online, what it looked like, and I want to make sure I'm understanding, is that the modification had to do with announcing things to parents and, certain parental rights around the implementation. Now, I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly or not, but when I looked at that, but I can do this later, or since everyone seems to be 1 foot out the door. 2 feet out the door.
Why don't we just get an
Jeff.
update?
Okay, because it looks like it was already approved. It's a report on modifications to the previously approved Jackson Intermediate School District around their special education services. And let me just say, the other change was remove content with regard to parent notice, written consent, parent rights, program information, independent education evaluation, due process hearings, compliant process, referral system, individual planning committee procedures, community integration and follow-up, instructional content monitoring and evaluation. So sounds like that's a big modification of a lot of important things. So I'm just trying to understand what is going on in Jackson.
You said maybe we could talk about it offline, because
Okay.
later, or
Okay,
maybe follow up
that's
with you
fine.
with that.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I can do that.
If I had one point, we've been putting so much emphasis on STEM, and now I like the STEAM with the arts. But what I'm concerned about is that we have not mentioned anything about social sciences, social studies in a long time.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a presentation at one of the board meetings of what we're actually doing in history, geography, economics.
Well, you go to one Hunter College reunion and you got social science back on again. No, why don't we put?
No, it really is, we can't ignore it. It's
Yeah.
a major area, the civics, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
something that we have to be up to par on.
Mertz will put it on for the next agenda planning, and the board can decide where to dish it
But
out.
it's a real concern to me because our citizenry is not really well informed, I don't think, on a lot of issues.
Mertz has it.
Back
We'll,
to their lack of understanding of the system and our history.
so we preserved it, and then at the next agenda, we'll
Okay.
decide which meeting you'd like it at, and which meeting we could accommodate. Any other comments? Okay, great. Actually, lengthy agenda, not much later than usual, so thank you for that. Got through a lot.
We can stay till 6 if
No,
you
no, no,
want.
we're,